factually false, not just my opinion, factually false. But overall, I think South Africa didn't get thrown out, and there's some possibilities of the USA attending G20, which could be exactly what South Africa wants. But you give me your own interpretation. There's so many things to come out of this one. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the National Pulse. So, yeah, there we are. Are you on the pulse, and what are you thinking as we are on the pulse? We're going to cover the issues and some of the responses extensively over the next 3 hours. Yes, it's been discussed already, but so what? We need to talk about it and re-talk about it and dissect it and see, did we win? What were the big wins for us, if anything, right? And first things first, let's talk about this issue, the issue of land. Because central to the conversations yesterday, once again, Donald Trump brought up the issue of the land and white South Africans, Afrikaners specifically, being forcibly removed off the land. So let's find out exactly, have an understanding of where we are with the land issue and where we want to go with Bulelwa Mabasa, who's the Director and Head of Land Reform and Tenure Practice at Worksman's Attorneys. Bulelwa, appreciate you connecting to us here on the National Pulse.
It's lovely to be here, Ashraf. I'm glad to be having this conversation with you.
Much appreciated. Maybe the next conversation you'll have about it will be with Donald Trump directly. Now, that could be something, don't you think so? It's that important.
That would be something. If I think if he could, silence our head of state. Can you imagine me in the room with him? But yes, that would be something.
Well, there you go. Absolutely. I'll tell you what, talking about that, right? So you were not there, but of course Trump was there, and so was Ramaphosa, and so were many other people from the USA and South Africa. And this is what Trump said regarding the issue of the land.
Over the last few days, death of people, death, horrible death, death. I don't know. To pick anyone, white South Africans are fleeing because of the violence and racist laws. And this is all, I'll give these to you. So when you say, what would I like to do? I don't know what to do. Look at this. White South African couples say that they were attacked violently.
President Trump, when will you go and see for yourself if it isn't?
Well, I could do that. Look, here's burial sites all over the place. These are all white farmers that are being buried. And he asks about a jet that was given. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. You are so bad. You're such a bad reporter. This is one after another. This family was wiped out. I'm just looking.
Can we get a report from President Ramaphosa?
Your reaction to those videos, Mr.
President Trump.
Well, I think the videos are so. No. When you look at the videos, how does it get worse? And these are people that are officials, and they're saying that kill the white farmer and take their land. That's what. And I have other friends in South Africa. I have people that left. One in particular that says you can't go there. He said they want to take your land. They take your land and they kill you. It's okay, and they say it's okay to do. Now we're going to talk about it, but this is a tremendous look. This is story recent. These are all people that recently got killed.
Yeah.
And I don't know how it can get any worse.
Okay, there's a whole lot more that what Donald Trump said. That's why many people have said he's this made-for-television spectacle, which is exactly what Trump did with the Ukrainian leader. And why did we think it's going to be any different? But anyway, let's stick with the issue of land. So, Bulelwa, good to connect with you once again. So let's understand this, because central to what Trump has been saying is two things: that there's a clear target of white Afrikaners in the main, and therefore farmers, to be able to, confiscate their land, and maybe the words that we use are important. And as a result of that, people are empowered to literally force people to be removed off the land and to kill them effectively if they resist, right? So I thought from a pure legal perspective, what was it before? What was it around 1994? And where are we now with the issues of expropriation and the general issues around the land?
I think what was important, in my view, for the South African team to just put out as the four key messaging is that our history, we have a history of land confiscation that was implemented by the apartheid government that didn't only start in 1913. It was violent. It included bloodshed. We had land wars as early as the early 17th and 17th century, where the majority of black people were dispossessed of land without compensation. The first thing was to explain that is our historical context, and it actually happened where it's the black majority that were in the receiving end of land confiscation. It was an important time to say President Ramaphosa presided over the Kempton Park negotiations prior to the promulgation of our constitution in the mid-90s, where the National Party and President Ramaphosa, as part of the negotiations in Kempton Park, got together and they created and formulated Section 25 of our Constitution, which starts off with saying that no person may be deprived of land unless it is by a law of general application, to say property rights are recognized in our Constitution and they remain so. And that was what the democratic government put on the table in the Constitution. But to also say, in the very same Constitution, we have land reform objectives where the state says, we recognize the past injustices of our past. We don't want to go back there. We realize that we've got to transform our society. And land forms part and parcel of the transformative justice course that our country chose to take. That when we became a democratic government, it was not in vain. It included bloodshed. It included, things like the Boipatong massacre and so forth. And that we, as South Africa, opted to avoid a full-scale civil war because we understood that we have, on one hand, the appreciation for property rights and also the obligation of the state to rectify the past injustices of land dispossession. That was a key message that needed to be brought onto the table. And then, of course, Ashraf, the most important conversation was to say we have a judiciary that is vibrant, that we don't have any examples that are noteworthy, objectively speaking, that we can point to where there's been a land confiscation where somebody did not have access to court. And in fact, what we've seen since 1994 to date are that the people who are evicted of farms, the majority of them are labor tenants, are farm workers who actually, it's the people that have access to court, that have access to legal resources, that have actually been able to evict people off land that were there for generations, and that the evidence bears out the fact that it's actually poor black farmers or farm workers that have been evicted and that have borne the brunt of dispossession and land dispossession. But I think also this is very key. It's very key to say expropriation is not a concept that South Africa invented. In America, it's called eminent domain. Our expropriation laws are brought about by Roman Dutch history. We've borrowed some of it from English law. We've borrowed some of it from Germanic law. And therefore, in America, every day, the American state expropriates property for public purposes and public interest. It just so happens that here in South Africa, we do so also for purposes of providing land access to the ones that are landless. So I think it was a missed opportunity in actually bringing in the language that Trump understands, being eminent domain, and to say in the UK it's called compulsory purchase. So if you had to do a comparative, even if I understand that there's inner workings that are still going to happen, there's going to be more technical conversations in a closed setting. But I think it was important to leave those key messages as powerful stances, or rather an introduction to say what we do in South Africa is part and parcel of the rule of law. It's not international law. And in fact, we borrow these concepts from the likes of America and other parts and other jurisdictions in the world.
All right. So therefore, just to fast forward to the present tense very, very quickly, so we do have this Expropriation Act. We know that AfriForum is challenging that constitutionally. So what then is because this is the nub of the AfriForum challenge. How does the the latest the act that I just spoke about, Expropriation Act, how does that differ from what was in law, in practice, 1994, just after the Constitution was enacted? What has changed since then?
So we had a 1975 Expropriation Act that said that the state could acquire property for a public purpose. It was used for Gauteng. For example, the people that owned property around the Gauteng areas were given market value compensation. They were white, they were black, they were Indian. It's quite a colorblind piece of legislation, right? And those people got compensation for for that. And the difference with the new act is that now our Constitution made provision for just and equitable compensation, which could be less than market value, it could be more than market value using certain factors. The only difference is that back then, only the market value controlled what compensation was. What the 2024 Act now does, 2024 Act does is that it brings it in line within our Constitution. Our Constitution always said we need to look at various factors before we can give someone compensation. How was it acquired? When was it acquired? What is the historical context? What is the market value? Was there any state investment? Were there any improvements? So what this new act does, it just brings it in line with what our Constitution said in 1996.
Okay.
And
yeah. All right.
That's the fundamental difference. And lastly, sorry, Asta.
Okay, I'll tell you what, put it on hold. I want to get your last thing just after this.
Do you want to study towards a tertiary qualification but need a flexible study schedule? Stadio Higher Education's distance learning qualifications offer just that. Our distance learning support is designed for your success. 2025 applications to Stadio's range of high-quality, affordable qualifications are now open. Distance learning qualifications are available in law, administration and management, commerce, teacher education, policing, law enforcement, humanities, and information technology. Visit stadio.ac.za and register today. Stadio, a new vision in higher education.
The boys of Flazu Davids are searching for 2 early goals to get back to the game in Zanzibar. But their Moroccan visitors want to finish off what they started in Pikani. Wekundu Wamsimbazi battles it out with the Orange Boys. This is the second leg final contest of the Total Energies CAF Confederation Cup. Do not miss out on the spectacular clash of African football. Simba Sports Club versus RSP Pikani FC. This Sunday, 25 May at 2:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC One. Also available on SABC radio stations. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Extraordinary doesn't just happen. It's built, brick by digital brick. With every connection, every innovation, every leap forward. A cloud that scales with your vision. Security that earns your trust. AI that empowers smarter decisions. IoT that connects what truly matters. Connectivity that bridges every gap. We're not just building technology, we're building the future of South Africa. Stronger businesses, thriving communities, a nation connected, empowered, and ready to lead. Together, let's build the extraordinary. Start your journey at vodacombusiness.co.za. Vodacom Business. Further together.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Well, we're going to connect to Scott Lucas in just a moment, but let's wrap up with Bulelwa Mabasa. Bulelwa, you wanted to just say one last thing, right?
So the one last thing that is controversial for example, AfriForum, is that the Section 12.3 of the Act that provides that expropriation without compensation or a nil compensation could be payable including one or other circumstances. AfriForum takes issue with the fact that those circumstances are not a closed list. They fear that the government could kind of widen the scope. Now, these are the circumstances where expropriation may be payable. Where expropriation without compensation may that includes, abandoned land, state-owned buildings that are, abandoned. Just you think about the fires that happen within the inner city and so forth. Building, land that is unoccupied, that is unsafe, and I think it's important to note that we still are yet to get regulations. Regulations in a piece of legislation give practical application to the act, and I think that's where the detail is going to be. But I don't think that the state has any intention of expropriating land that is in use, that is productive, and where people are using it for commercial purposes or residential purposes.
Let's leave it at that. And I think a part of that, as we say thank you to you, Bulelwa Mabaso, is that maybe AfriForum is basing their assumptions on the basis of how government may govern down the line. It's very speculative, right? But on the other hand, perhaps it's time for our government and not Donald Trump to effectively hold the expropriation narrative. That means to fully understand and fully explain it to all the people of South Africa so they get it from us firsthand, not from anybody else. This is the National Pulse.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
Right, so let's move on to another perspective on what I'd say Ramaphosa versus Trump, or Ramaphosa and Trump meeting up yesterday. What different people have different perspectives about it. So what did the global community make of how Ramaphosa handled the issue of Donald Trump, keeping in mind we've had Trump meeting the Canadian Prime Minister recently, but also the more significant one, the Ukrainian leader, and we know what happened then, right? So let's get the thoughts of Scott Lucas, who's the Professor of International Politics at the Clinton Institute at the University College in Dublin. Scott Lucas, appreciate your time as always. Thanks for connecting on the National Pulse.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me here.
Thank you. First of all, what is your assessment of how Ramaphosa, the South African president, and his team responded to Donald Trump, which in the main had lots of attacks and very specific remarks, right? Which as we then find out clearly were not true, right? But how did you think he responded and they responded?
First of all, let me say that I don't think my perspective is the important one here. I think the perspective that's going to be important is that of South Africans. It's their country that they have to talk about the future of. That future shouldn't be dictated by Donald Trump and what he did yesterday. So it's very important in terms of how they interpret the economic and the political consequences of this meeting. But as for my perspective, I was horrified, actually, by what happened. I'm not surprised, but I was horrified. First of all, I must say, so I'll talk about Trump and what he did, then talk about Ramaphosa. And that is that at the end of February, when Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky was ambushed in the White House, it was an ambush primarily by one person, by the Vice President J.D. Vance. I'm not even sure Trump was in on that, although Trump then followed and attacked Zelensky as well. What happened yesterday was orchestrated. That's why it was different, in that it would have taken not just Trump, but Trump's advisors who would have set up that video, who would have set up, the copies of those articles, which in fact were not actually about South Africa. Yeah. At least one of them was about Congo. It would have, in other words, been a Trump administration that did this because they weren't there to engage in meaningful talks with Ramaphosa, especially about trade and tariffs. Yeah. They were there to tear South Africa down as a country, not just Ramaphosa, but to tear South Africa down with this conspiracy theory, this narrative of white genocide. Now, how Ramaphosa responded to it, I thought he was measured. I think he did not rise to the bait of confrontation, even though he was unsettled by the video footage. And I think what was equally significant is that the South African team afterwards were very emphasizing, look, there's a positive in that we met Trump behind closed doors to get our issues across. So they didn't try to make this like a dramatic showdown. And I think also, may I mention, that there was a South African trade unionist who's getting a lot of attention here in Ireland, who spoke very eloquently, addressing the president, saying, we need you to see our issues. We need you to engage with us. As Ramaphosa said, we need you to do this in terms of a constructive approach rather than what we're seeing here.
And therefore, just your quick assessment in terms of not how you think about it or myself, but just how the globe has interpreted what has happened.
I mean, I think the globe is, and I hate to say this, but it's almost like they're not surprised by what's happened. You know, we saw what happened to Zelensky. We've seen Trump act boorishly towards political opponents for many years. And we know that Elon Musk was in that room. And we know that Elon Musk, as a native-born South African who has issues with his native country, we know that he could have been involved in winding Trump up for what happened. So we're not surprised. I think first and foremost, I'm really going to be interested in the reaction of Africa as a continent to this, because I think the United States, the Trump administration, has already caused great damage to American interest. The closing of U.S. Agency for International Development, therefore the cutting of billions in U.S. aid for health programs, for education programs, for civic community programs, the almost farcical tour by the father-in-law of Trump's daughter, Mr. Boulos, to a few African countries pursuing rare earth minerals rather than actual cooperation with Africa. So I think the Trump administration was already hurting the American position, and I think this just does further damage. And let's be honest here, that means if African countries are looking elsewhere with who they want for a partner, do they look for a Washington, or do they look to Europe, or do they look to Beijing?
Yeah, good point. Let me wrap up with a quick response from you. One of the key aims of South Africa, or Team South Africa, was to achieve reset status with the USA. Do you think they've achieved that, or they're on the road to achieving that?
You can't do that with Trump. Now, and this will be the important thing that almost nobody's noticing, which other Trump administration officials did South Africa's delegation talk to during that meeting? So if I was to say the issue of trade and tariffs, the key person on trade and tariffs, I think here is the Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent. I think he's pulled Trump back from the most extreme tariff measures, but there's still a lot of damaging tariffs that are in place. Can you get to Bessent and the other, what I call adults in the room, to talk sensibly about trade and tariffs? Because it's not going to happen with Trump, because one, he's just looking for a quick headline, and two, I got to be honest with you, Donald Trump doesn't actually know that much about trade and tariffs.
Okay, let's leave it at that. Scott Lucas, Professor of International Politics at Clinton University at the University College in Dublin. Much appreciate your time here on the Pulse, on the National Pulse. Let's get the news headlines here, Zondela.
Thank you, Ashraf. On the news headlines, police in KwaZulu-Natal have rearrested a 28-year-old man who is the suspect in a number of rape cases involving school children in the Nkandla area. The man escaped earlier this week as police officers were preparing to transfer him to a correctional facility. ANC Secretary-General Fikile Mbalula has described President Cyril Ramaphosa's visit to the United States as mission accomplished. Ramaphosa led a delegation of 4 ministers, some business people, golf players and labor on a working visit to Washington to reset bilateral relations. And German Chancellor Friedrich Merz has denounced the threat posed by Russia on a visit to Lithuania to inaugurate Germany's first brigade-sized unit to be permanently based abroad since the Second World War. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N1 southbound in Randburg has a stationary vehicle before Malibongwe Drive, and Woodmead Drive has delays at Maxwell Drive. In Cape Town, the M3 southbound has a stationary vehicle near Upper Hillwood Road. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
Okay, Jimmy, just for the record, I juggled between leaving radio yesterday, 6 o'clock, rushing to this paddle launch at the same time, keeping an eye on Trump and Ramaphosa, and then rushing to watch a delayed Man United game. And you know that I have feelings for Man United, and they know they were pretty useless, and they lost. I've said so. Deservedly so.
You're not alone in that boat, unfortunately. But anyway, let's start things off with football. A very good afternoon to you, Ashraf, and our listeners. Well, CAF have unveiled a brand new trophy for the CAF Champions League. This rebranding forms part of CAF's ongoing efforts to raise the global profile of its inter-club competitions. And here's CAF head of broadcaster liaison and operations, Lux September, just explaining the inspiration behind the new design.
It's got a new base, a lot of detail, put a lot of touch of gold at the top. The previous trophy was probably this size, yes. I think. So you can see that what we've done is not just make it bigger. We've given a big, nice, modern look. So when you're looking at other global competitions, I mean, we commission an international agency to give us working a lot with our amazing team internally at CAF to give us the look and feel of this, and this is the end product.
Well, the first leg of the Total Energies CAF Champions League final kicks off this Saturday with the decisive second leg on the 1st of June in Cairo. Meanwhile, the protest lodged against Durban City in the Motsepe Foundation Championship has been referred to SAFA for direct arbitration, casting a shadow on playoffs. The Premier Soccer League Dispute Resolution Chamber, led by Raymond Hag, on Tuesday dismissed JDR Stars' claim that City used an ineligible player winger Sazi Magwana during the season. The player was on the books of Marumo Gallants last season but joined City, who needed him cleared to move on and believed that they had followed the proper channels to make sure that Magwana is transferred to them for free by his former employers. In the meantime, FIFA has approved a special 10-day transfer window for Club World Cup running from the 1st of June to the 10th, just before the tournament starts on the 14th of June in the United States. Teams can now sign new players during this period. The regular European summer transfer window opens on the 16th of June and it closes on the 1st of September. Additionally, clubs in the Club World Cup can sign players again from the 27th of June to the 3rd of July after the group stage. Elsewhere, Tottenham Hotspur captain Son Heung-min says that he can now be called a legend after finally winning silverware with the club. Now, Spurs beat Manchester United 1-0 in the Europa League final thanks to a first half goal by Brennan Johnson. It's Tottenham's first trophy in 17 years and a special moment for Son, who had previously lost in the Champions League and Carabao Cup finals.
I don't care what people criticize us, but they all will be always criticizing us again. But look, I mean, as yesterday after in the press conference again, this will be the first trophy after 17 years. We hope we can change the mentality of a club and mentality of a fan base, and we can continue to work, and we can continue to challenge another trophy.
And you know what? I'm not going to be a sore loser. I'm going to say a big congratulations to all Tottenham fans. Yeah, we march on. We really march on as Manchester United. Then in Olympic news, the IOC says that it's confident that Brisbane is on track to host the 2032 Games. That's after a 3-day visit by Olympic Coordination Commission to the city. Former show jumper Mikhail Jaworski has now officially taken over as the chair of commission from IOC President-elect Kirsty Coventry. Now, Jaworski says that Brisbane can look to the lasting benefits seen in Melbourne and Sydney as proof of how the Olympics can positively impact a city. In rugby, the draw for the pool stage of the 2027 Men's Rugby World Cup in Australia will take place next December. The tournament will feature 24 teams rather than 20, as was the case since the 1999 World Cup, divided into 6 pools of 4. Perth will host the opening match and Sydney the final are in the event from the 1st of October to the 13th of November in 2027. And finally, in basketball, South Africa's representatives in the Basketball African League this year, made by basketball, have recorded their first victory in this year's competition, beating Kenya's Nairobi City Thunder 74-71 with 1 win and 2 losses. They are third in the Nile Conference and 3 more games to play for a spot in the BAL playoffs. And with BAL playoffs and the final set to be held in Pretoria next month, MMB's Peter Prinsloo, who was also part of the Cape Town Tigers project, says that they understand the pressure element that comes with this.
We understand, that the playoffs are in South Africa, and obviously it's a big thing for us to qualify and get through there. So obviously we've got first 2 games down. We understand the mistakes that we've made. Definitely from game 1 to game 2, there's a lot of things that we did better. And we see that if we play our basketball, there's, APR is a very competitive team, and we're able to, beat them in the first half when we play the right way. And obviously, you got to play 40 minutes of basketball to be complete. But no, yeah, there could be a little bit of pressure, and guys might be feeling it. But we're not trying to look too far forward at the moment, and just get better day by day so we can fix the things that we need to, the mistakes that we're making, because it's a group that hasn't been together for very long at the moment. A lot of us came together at the last minute, and there's still some things we need to fix. Our coach has been working with us every day and getting us better, so we'll be okay.
Well, they face APR from Rwanda at 7 p.m. tonight. With that said, it's a wrap from my side for now. I'll have more in the next hour.
Okay, and I've seen not a single person with a Man United top today. I'm just making the point. Thank you.
Ultimate Value is opening an account with 34 benefits while getting her a treat. Ultimate Success is getting her the ballet shoes that you promised. With the 2,000 Rand balance booster, Ultimate Goals is living life on your own terms with a credit card with 0 monthly fees. Absa Ultimate Banking is about having it all in one account for 98 Rand per month. Apply online now. Your story matters. Absa, subject to affordability and scoring. T's and C's apply. Absa is an authorized FSP and a registered credit provider.
Your nights just got a turbo boost. Buckle up, because at 10 p.m. it's all thrill, mystery and pure entertainment. Mondays to Wednesdays, we are back on the track with Top Gear Season 14, where speed meets insanity and the world's wildest cars get pushed to their limits. On Thursdays, we uncover the truth in Imposter, Back from the Dead. Season 1 kicks off with chilling twists in a tale of deception, survival, and secrets long buried. Fridays, we take a deep dive into the unknown with Secrets of the Bermuda, exploring the myths, the disappearances, and the terrifying truth behind the world's most infamous triangle. 3 explosive shows, 1 unforgettable hour. It all starts at 10 p.m. only on S3. Don't miss it!
SAFM music, crafted to make you feel real good. Handpicked just for your pleasure. Classics sounding so good, only on SAFM.
X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Right, I certainly want to hear what you have to say on some of the issues we've spoken about. Obviously, you can talk about anything, but there's no question when we say, are you on the pulse? It would mean reflecting the reality of what's happened around yesterday's meetup between Cyril Ramaphosa and Donald Trump, and of course colleagues from both sides, the USA and and South Africa, of course. Michelle Constant, of course, you can catch her on the weekend, Saturday, Sunday morning, listening to the show, which is great, saying Bulelwa Mabasa gave an excellent explanation to Ashraf, right, on details of expropriation bill and the Trump-Ramaphosa meeting. Really thoughtful, deserves to be repeated here and in Washington. Well, completely concur. Let's get on to something else that's just as important before I get to your calls pretty shortly, right? Because there's lots of innovation and development taking place in our country and mass collaboration that is for the benefit of everybody, right? So let's talk about something that's really interesting, which is a digital strategy connection, really, with the city of Ekurhuleni. I understand there was a 2-day digital strategy validation session that took place fairly recently. Let's get the thoughts of Yandisa Sokonyile, who's the CEO of Connecta and the co-founder of WeTech Africa. Yandisa, good to connect with you on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon, and good afternoon to the listeners. Very good to be here.
Thank you. So, I mean, we all know digital is important and being innovative is important and somehow to connect with others and collaborate is important. But I understand that what took place a few days ago in Ekurhuleni is particularly important, and your organization has played a huge role in that. So tell me more about it.
Oh, yes, it's a very, very important discussion in the project that we have embarked on. So this is development of a digital strategy for Tembisa as one of the pilot sites that have been identified for digitization. This is a project by the World Bank in partnership with the Cities Support Program of the National Treasury and the city of Ekurhuleni. Connector is the lead consultant in the program, and we're in partnership with Avovision. So the strategy is about how do we get the community of the citizens of Tembisa in the digital economy and not even behind. So we've developed a digital strategy that is anchored in the digital economic framework of the World Bank, which comprises of 5 pillars, namely the digital infrastructure, digital platforms, digital finance, digital entrepreneurship, and digital skills. So we started by doing a baseline assessment in Tembisa of all of those pillars to understand who are the network providers, where's the fiber in Tembisa, where are the towers, where are the Wi-Fi hotspots, are they working, and we looked at the platforms, what the city of Ekurhuleni has done, and what sort of platforms are the citizens adopting, and how is the city communicating with the citizens. We also looked at the digital finance, which we found that it was very lacking due to a number of issues, including lack of digital skills, fear of cyber crimes, and also because it's a very cash-based society. So that has got a number of factors that influence that, including compliance from the small businesses and so forth. But one pillar that we found was really lacking is the digital skills. So what we've done is to present now the strategy, the draft strategy, by bringing the private sector, the funders, the key role players in each of those pillars to say, how can they help the city of Ekurhuleni to implement the strategy? Because we don't want a document that's just going to sit there and belong to the strategy zoo. But we want to make sure that it can be implemented, it can be funded. So the occasion that we had on the 13th and the 14th was bringing the stakeholders to validate their recommendations. And what was great is that in our assessment, we brought in the community. We had multiple engagements when we were doing the baseline, the assessment. We took feedback from the community, and that is what we're presenting now to the private sector and the funders. And what was also great was to have the other cities joining us, City of Joburg and City of Tshwane, coming and giving their own lessons and inputs into the strategy development.
I would think that, as the audience listens to you and I talking, what they would like to see is like, what's the bottom line to it in terms of materially, how does it change the way Ekurhuleni does things?
Yes, one of the key things that we've realized in Tembisa, and just from speaking to the community and engaging, there is so much wealth of knowledge. There is so much hunger for change that people don't know where to start. One, everyone recognizes that they need digital skills, and there are some people that have got training through the programs that the city is also doing, but they don't know each other. So it's how do you take the skill that's there, group it, and put it into a platform? How do you digitize the businesses, the lady that sells amagwinya somewhere and bring them into the forefront? The dressmaker who is great at their work, but they are not known because they are sitting in somewhere in Tembisa, but nobody knows about them. What they want to see is access to market. How does the city come and help them so that they can be known? How do they engage with the city, in a better way where they can bring in the platforms and be engaged? So that is what the community wants to actually see and say, we see about these initiatives, but how do these initiatives benefit us? And how do we take advantage? And it's the eager to learn, the eager to grow, and the eagerness to develop from the community that is really inspiring, because they were coming up with the solutions themselves to say, we already have fiber infrastructure. Why don't we have cameras? Because we struggle with crime. Why don't we have IoT devices that can track, water usage and solve the community problems?
Yeah, good point. Let me wrap up with this. I think every one of us are looking at digital as an enabler to solve problems that we have in our businesses and in our daily lives, right? I'm just looking at me punching in something into a ChatGPT AI functionality that I've never ever thought I would do before, right? Which gets me on to think about this. If we're talking about digital as an enabler, to what degree then will it close that gap in terms of creating economic inclusion, or in this case, I would say an economic growth boom in that region, and therefore going back to the point that I think has been brought up in your documents, to create the impact beyond just tech, because it's not, tech is the enabler, but it's not the end goal. There's an impact beyond it, right?
Yes, definitely. Well, that's a view that we have, digital as an enabler. One of the critical aspects, as I said, one of the pillars that we're lacking was the digital skills. As you mentioned, AI is one of the biggest technological revolutions happening right now. But we looked at it from an African and South African, and especially a Tembisa context, because what we have done is to look at globally, nationally, and also use some of the World Bank's case studies and projects that have been done that are in the similar economies as Tembisa, and see what are the best practices and lessons that can be learned and implemented in Tembisa as well. One, we understand the context of South African townships, firstly, and the strategy seeks to solve those problems without catching up to the global world. So we identify the strengths of Tembisa and the people of Tembisa and exactly where they are lacking. As I said, one, infrastructure is already there. So one of the aspects we're looking, how do we maximize and make sure that you get everybody connected, because already the infrastructure is in place, right? That is the foundation of digital transformation, people having access to high-speed quality internet. That is the first. So we're looking at from that point, and we're not jumping and saying we're pushing skills, because we understand without the infrastructure, you cannot move. Two, a skills development framework that looks at the women and also looking at even the women, middle-aged women who are above 35. That is another cohort of women that need training. How do you bring in people with disability into this training? And once you train them, you don't just want people to get qualifications that they're not going to use. How do we create platforms that will onboard the same resources that have been trained, the people now who are qualified, so that they can be found and they can be able to work and service companies globally.
Okay.
And also for entrepreneurs, how do you bring them into these digital platforms so that they can be found?
Lots of questions, and hopefully we'll have answers from you and your team, even beyond just what happened last week. Yandisa Sokanyile, who's the CEO of Connector and the co-founder of WeTech Africa. They put together a project in the city of Ekurhuleni in Tembisa in particular around just that, digital enhancement.
Honey, what are you doing?
I'm stretching for tonight.
I thought you're not dancing at bachelorette parties anymore.
Baby, we need the money to put Johnny through matric mos.
And what's the police uniform for?
The clients feel safer when I wear it.
No, man, just sell your bucky to We Buy Cars. They give the best prices and they pay you within minutes.
Okay, but can I just go and dance one more time, please? You know how much I love it.
No, the buyer's already on his way here.
Wow, okay.
Strapped for cash? Just sell your vehicle to We Buy Cars. The easiest way to sell your car by far.
South Africans don't like to talk about Say what? Mara FYI, our financial confidence is, and our financial anxiety, it's an F show.
Or is it? See, just talking about our finances can build confidence and make us better at managing them.
This is exciting. Welcome to your Fintervention, Mzansi.
It's our way to get you talking, laughing, and learning about.
Start now at livewithconfidence.co.za. Sanlam. Live with confidence. Sanlam Life is a licensed life insurer, financial services, and registered credit provider.
You are listening to Night Talk.
Taxi violence in South Africa has a long history. Why has violence and the taxi industry in South Africa become so inextricably tied?
And it's a problem that has been happening, at least since the late 80s when the industry was still regulated. And in actual fact, I would like to just regard it as an industry that has deep historical roots in terms of the violence, dates back to the apartheid era, and also one of the things that I've recognized through my research over the years is actually what I call the state's failure to integrate the industry into the formal transport system, which continues to operate under stiff competition between taxi associations.
Dr. Siyabulela Fobosi, who's a senior researcher at Fort Hare University.
Night Talk, Monday to Thursdays, 10 to midnight. X at SFM Radio, and at Ashraf Garda.
So, are you on the pulse? I'll only know that if whatever you say is consistent with some of the biggest issues that moves the pulse of the nation. And one of them, without doubt, the budget has been overshadowed by what happened later on in the day yesterday at the White House. So let's get your thoughts or some aspects you may want to pick up on. Rebecca and Calvin, go for it.
Hi, Ashraf. Thanks for taking my call.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for calling.
Before I make my comment, just help me with just one issue. Did the golfers and Mr. Rupert, were they invited by the Trump administration or they came as part of our envoy?
Well, listen, I'm going to be ambiguous. It seems to be a bit of both. That they were invited on the basis of Trump nudging them to South Africa to say, invite them. And since they are his friends and they are South African and they're world-renowned, that's why they're invited. Now, that's what I'm telling you today. There are some grey areas around this issue, and I think that's sort of closer to the truth, yeah.
Okay, great stuff. Thank you, Ashraf. My point is this. I think this was they orchestrated it very well, the Americans. It is Trump administration. He wanted to prove a point that he's looking down on South African government. He didn't give them a chance to explain. Every time Ramaphosa tried to explain a point, he just shut him down. And he continued to call on the golfers and Mr. Rupert to speak, to be the ones that he speak. It was almost like we were servants of the master. But we need to move forward as South Africans. My point, it was heartbreaking to see how they treated us. I know Mr. Ramaphosa tried to keep a calm composure and really allow his ministers. To us or to some of us in South Africa who were looking, we thought maybe Mr. Lamola, Mr. Pakster, those guys were maybe not wanting to speak. But I think they kept their decorum. You cannot fight someone who's fighting you back. I think it was a beautiful strategy. They went there. They were surprised about how the whole thing turned out. They thought they were going to sit with him first and have a talk. But he didn't do that. He just so much put them on the spotlight, played the video, wanted to embarrass South Africa. We need to stand up and stand together as South Africans. For me, Ashraf, what the DA, Minister of Agriculture, did, he was supposed to vehemently say, there is no genocide in South Africa. There's a problem of crime. Yes, there are differences here and there, but he didn't do that. For me, it showed how deep entrenched apartheid is still in the white man.
Okay,
we are subservient to them. They don't want us to live together. They are just tolerating us, especially the DA.
Right. Well, okay, Rebecca, I'm going to move on. We're really out of time here. I need to speak to somebody else. I don't think I would get to an extent where they don't want to live with us, because that's making extreme statements that are as extreme as others, almost like Trump making extreme statements about South Africa. I think, if I stand to be corrected, John Steenhuisen, yes, he didn't say it's a genocide, but he actually said it was not right. He didn't say it's not a genocide, but he did say that in South Africa. Now, I agree with you, they're not equal in terms of the global audience and what he said back home. And you wonder, why didn't he say so at that time when he had the opportunity? The other part that interesting you brought up, I don't think Trump was trying to put down South Africa because he's South Africa. He was trying to put down South Africa because South Africa, at this point in time, he's got a problem with them, right or wrong. And what he did is exactly how he deals with it. That is why when they went first with the live TV media conference compared to post, they changed things around. Why would anybody be surprised? I'm not surprised at all. I've been saying it all along. Michael in Rebecca, go for it.
Ashraf, I think most people focus on the PR, if I can call it that, the PR and the distractions instead of what is really at play. The United States has the most sophisticated and highest intelligence service in the world, perhaps maybe Russia and China. So it's clear that they know there is no genocide in South Africa. They know that. Their intelligence would have picked that up. So that is the distraction where you're distracting people with that, knowing very well that that's not the issue. What I saw and what I think is playing out is more of a trade move by Trump, because everything is business to Trump and his people. So basically what's going to happen is that Starlink, because remember, Starlink has been trying to get here, and Rupert made it very clear. He said, we need Elon's Starlink. So for me, it's a trade agenda more than anything else.
Well, in fact, South Africa, to be fair, were hoping that the entire conversation was only going to be about trade. When they talked about a reset going into the meeting, it was about a trade reset, not about other issues. What they didn't expect, which I thought was rather naive, that Trump was going to bring up once again the issues of genocide and refugees and South African white Afrikaners. Like, I'm just saying, why would they have been on the back foot on that? For me, if they asked me, it was the most obvious thing that he was going to raise no matter what. Thank you for that. Let's get another quick comment from Michael in Gqeberha. Hi, Michael. In fact, we'll get you some voice notes now quickly before we get to the news, and a lot of it is about Rupert.
Good afternoon, Ashraf is for the track again, Free Ashraf. The greatest moment for me of that meeting was when John Vulligate Steenhuisen tried to put EFF and MK under the bus, and guess what? Johan Rupert was there to save the day. He actually put him under the reality check bus.
Okay, your point has been made. Well, listen, I think let's just get this right. There was this very brief meeting for 1 or 2 minutes when they arrived that we didn't, that really was insignificant. Then the plan was to have this very public media presser of sorts after the 1 hour long meeting. As you know, that got turned around and they met afterwards. So the point is, as someone has said, which one is for play, public play, and which one is private? What was finally agreed upon privately? South Africa may say that if Donald Trump says, I'm going to consider coming to the G20, that's a huge thing compared to what has happened before. And if they succeeded in that, that is quite remarkable, don't you think? I'm looking at it purely from an economic business point of view for South Africa. Let's get the news. Here's Ondela. It's 4 o'clock.
Thank you, Ashraf. Top stories. A rape suspect re-arrested in KZN, and Mbalula pleased with Ramaphosa's visit to the U.S. For SAFM News, I am Ondela and a very good afternoon. Police in KwaZulu-Natal have re-arrested a 28-year-old man who is the suspect in a number of rape cases involving school children in the Nkandla area. The man escaped earlier this week as police officers were preparing to transfer him to a correctional facility. He was initially apprehended by members of a taxi association at Nkandla. After the escape, the police set up a dedicated team to track him down. Provincial Police spokesperson Robert Nechunda says the suspect was located in Umbilo outside the Durban CBD.
The suspect will appear in the Pinetown Magistrate Court today, being Thursday, 22nd May 2025, on a charge of escaping from lawful custody. He will then be transferred to Ekombe, where he will face several cases of rape, in which allegedly targeted learners who reside at cottages of a school in Nkandla.
Western Cape police say they are following up on leads after a Kleinvlei police station near Eerste Rivier came under fire yesterday. The incident happened shortly before midnight. Western Cape Police Commissioner Thembisile Phathekile says they are investigating the possibility that the incident is in retaliation to the arrest of 3 alleged gang members that were suspected to be responsible for murders in the area. Phathekile has visited the police station.
We suspect that there is a link between the shooting at the police station, because when they were arrested, I think the people thought that they're coming down here, but obviously the people are not here because there is no cells here. We don't have cells. They get processed somewhere. The shooting was then directed at the building, and some bullet holes in the building.
ANC Secretary General Fikile Mbalula has described President Cyril Ramaphosa's visit to the United States as mission accomplished. Ramaphosa led a delegation of 4 ministers, some business people, golf players and Labour on a working visit to Washington to reset bilateral relations. This follows erroneous genocide claims earlier by Trump as the reason for allowing some white Afrikaners to seek a refugee status in the U.S. This is despite the UN not having ruled that white Afrikaners should have such status. Mbalula says the president did a good job for the country.
I think we may want to characterize yesterday as mission accomplished because many things have been said about South Africa. It took the head of state to go to White House, to sit down with President Trump and to put the record straight for the first time face to face. And President must be applauded for that. He's doing it for his country. He's not doing it for himself, to protect the interests of South Africans. And I think yesterday resetting the button meant that the diplomatic channels, the proper channels of engaging will actually be opened up from yesterday. So it's a great achievement for South Africa.
The presidency has clarified why the special envoy Mcebisi Jonas was not part of the president's delegation to the U.S. The presidency says he was left out at his own request, but he contributed to the preparatory engagements ahead of the meeting. The presidency has also added that Jonas has valid travel documents to the U.S. Questions have arisen about whether he did not travel because of his views on the President of the United States, which have been critical. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz has denounced the threat posed by Russia on a visit to Lithuania to inaugurate Germany's first brigade-sized unit to be permanently based abroad since the Second World War. Merz said that Germany and its partners were determined to defend all NATO territory. Russia launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine more than 3 years ago, causing Europe to reassess its security posture and spend more on the military. The BBC's Jessica Parker has the details.
For Germany, this is all part of a change where it's trying to become a more assertive power in Europe. Friedrich Merz, the new Chancellor, said he wants Germany to have the strongest conventional army in Europe as a means of deterring attacks. But Germany's military has historically been underfunded, so this is a big change for the EU's largest economy. And having this permanent foreign troop deployment in a country like Lithuania, well, that would have been unthinkable not long ago.
Recapping the top story, police in KwaZulu-Natal have rearrested a 28-year-old man who is the suspect in a number of rape cases involving school children in the Nkandla area. I am on Delambana for SFM News Headlines at 4:30.
In sports this hour, Hugo Broos names preliminary squad for international friendlies, and Zverev still in search for elusive Grand Slam. More details at 4:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N12 westbound in Gilview has a crash before Klip River Drive, the N1 southbound in Randburg, a stationary vehicle before Malibongwe Drive. In KZN, the N3 eastbound in Pietermaritzburg has a stationary truck before Market Road, the N3 eastbound has a stationary truck at Cliffdale, and the N3 northbound truck crash recovery underway near Escourt North Interchange. In Cape Town, the M5 southbound has a crash before Racecourse Road exit. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
Stay safe on the roads. SAFM is with you.
Did you hear that? That's the sound of your car about to cost you a lot of money. Sorry. The engine noise you should be hearing is the boat on your upcoming diving trip. But don't let cash flow hold you back. Do both. Get a Nedbank personal loan of up to 400,000 Rand. Apply online at nedbank.co.za today. See money differently. Nedbank. We're a licensed FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
Your nights just got a turbo boost. Buckle up, because at 10 p.m. it's all thrill, mystery and pure entertainment. Mondays to Wednesdays, we are back on the track with Top Gear Season 14, where speed meets insanity and the world's wildest cars get pushed to their limits. On Thursdays, we uncover the truth in Imposter, Back from the Dead. Season 1 kicks off with chilling twists in a tale of deception, survival, and secrets long buried. Fridays, we take a deep dive into the unknown with Secrets of the Bermuda, exploring the myths, the disappearances, and the terrifying truth behind the world's most infamous triangle. 3 explosive shows, 1 unforgettable hour. It all starts at 10 p.m. only on S3. Don't miss it!
The Red Devils want to wrap up the season with maximum points at Old Trafford.
Into the box, brilliant! Absolutely fantastic! And Mason Mount strikes again!
Brilliant stop from Manchester United.
While the Villains want to conclude their good race with a victory.
Rodgers turns and sees a knee ball into an Ollie Watkins, and he's touched it home. Ollie Watkins breaks the record. Number 75 for Watkins.
This is the bottom half versus top half Premier League clash. Catch Manchester United FC versus Aston Villa FC on Sunday 25 May at 4:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and S3. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
This May, SAFM celebrates Africa Month with you as we honor the legacy of the Organization of African Unity. We bring you rich conversations and the vibrant sounds of Africa. Music that moves the soul. This is SAFM. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
And the best way to have a sense of you being connected to the National Pulse is to be on the pulse, on the show, listening to what we do and what we talk about all throughout 3 hours every single day, right? We're going to play some sound because we're just recapping some of the most significant moments of yesterday's White House meeting, right? I want to just say this much. Lots of people have been talking about this being an ambush. Now, what do they mean by that? That it means two things. That the move for the 4 TV spectacle was brought earlier than the original plan, number one. And the other one was that Donald Trump then brought up the issue of Afrikaners and refugees and genocide all in one go. And that put South Africa on the back foot because they hurriedly got to watch a video clip and they were ready for that, right? So here's my personal thought. I don't think Team South Africa were ambushed. If they asked me in advance, was that going to happen? I would have said yes. I think they ought to have known in advance that this was the most likely thing of 5 or 6 things. Why would you expect the same Donald Trump, who can literally dismiss an NBC reporter right in front of them and did the same thing with the Ukraine leader before that, why would you think it's only going to be all friendly, chummy, let's have a reset and do a business deal? Even if he agrees on all of that, and I think he will, it doesn't stop him doing what he did in the first place, which is first put you down and then decide to negotiate with you on his terms. It's exactly what Donald Trump does. So my point about were we ambushed? I don't think so. I think it's exactly what's expected. If you think we were ambushed, then maybe we're naive to think that this was not going to happen. Anyway, it is in that context that we're going to play some of the sound from yesterday, right? And one of them, amongst the many things that we'll talk about, is the South African golfer, certainly one of the finest golfers in the world at his time, Ernie Els, commenting about the things he'd like to see get better for South Africa.
Mr. President, and thanks for the honor of being here. We've known each other a long time. We have spoken. We're proud South Africans. I still have my South African passport. We travel with this passport, and I got my visa here. So, but we want to see things get better in our home country. That's the bottom line. It's been 35 years since the transition. President Ramaphosa was right in the middle of the transition time in 1990 and before that. So it's been 35 years of ANC government. And I know there's a lot of anger, through the transition. There was also a lot of stuff happening in the apartheid days. We grew up in the apartheid era. But I don't think 2 wrongs makes a right. President Mandela, when he came out of prison for all that time, didn't come out with hatred, you know, and really unified our nation through sport. You know, we won the Rugby World Cup in '95.
4 times.
We won the African Nations Cup, soccer. You know, we won some majors as golfers and so forth. So what I'm trying to say is, you know, this has been a long time coming. That's why we really wanted to meet you, meet the administration, and see our way forward. Because
I wonder what he meant by 2 wrongs don't make a right. And also, it's not in the clip, but only else also referred to South Africa's support against Angola, which is a really, really complex issue indeed. We're talking about apartheid South Africa at the time, isn't it? Okay, that's one, but there's more, of course, right? Then South African businessman Johan Rupert, many talk about him as the richest businessman in the country and certainly the most influential. Well, this is what he said about crime in South Africa, and just listen very carefully to the words he used.
President, if you had to wind all of those places properly, you will see I'm the biggest target of that rabble-rouser. Number 1 for over 10 years, Mr. Malema. In fact, the first time I met him, he was in the youth league with that gentleman, and look how he's changed.
Right.
We have too many deaths. But it's across the board. It's not only white farmers. It's across the board. And we need technological help. We need Starlink at every little police station. We need drones. I actually got drones donated for the peace parks to stop elephant and rhino poaching. And his predecessor stopped the importation because he said the United States would spy on us. I mean, US basics, the ridicule. So if you can help us. Remember, sir, you and I lived in New York in the 70s. We never thought New York could be what it became. 2 commissioners, a tough mayor. We need your help to stop this awful killing. But it's across the board. Ernie's right now building a house in George. I'm building 3 cottages for my grandchildren on a farm outside Graaff-Reinet. I often go to bed without locking the door. And we have a serious problem with illegal aliens who stream across the border. And if you really look at our statistics, a lot of these murders, firstly it's unemployment and illegal aliens. And then I met Vice President Bartz many years ago, the Charlie Rose show. My wife loved the book. And she reminded me this morning that you emphasized the devastation that occurs when big companies leave towns and cities, and there's a culture of dependency that develops. And I remember you discussing it. Now that's our problem. If we don't get our economy to grow, the culture of dependency and the lawlessness will increase. I've been against apartheid all my life, and I'm their number 1 target. Please just Google my name and Malema. You'll see it, sir. He marched on the farm.
But the crime is bad.
The crime is terrible, sir, but Mr. Steenhuisen won't admit to it, but he runs the Western Cape, where I live. And the biggest murder rate is in the Cape Flats. Gangs. We've got gang warfare. Like your M33, what are these guys? We've got equivalents there. But we need your help, sir. And we need Elon technology.
We'll need Elon technology, and that may come in some form or the other. Interesting about Johan Rupert, I mean, clearly a hugely wealthy human being, and therefore many people are very critical of him as the manifestation of white monopoly capital and his ability to, influence thought and change processes in South Africa. On the other hand, based upon the feedback yesterday or last night, many felt that he spoke like a true patriot. He spoke for South Africa. If you just listen carefully to all the things he said, he spoke putting South Africa very much first, which is quite significant, including talking about investing further with his children and the issues of the porous borders and the issues of John Steenhuisen and his party not being able to sort out the gang warfare in the Cape Flats as well. So in many ways, the way I looked at that particular clip of Johan Rupert, he sounded like he was in Parliament. That's the type of language you expect in Parliament to say. And I know he won't agree with me, but more of the same, isn't it? Let's get the people that truly matter, that can influence change in our country, to speak out aloud for the better, for all South Africans, not just one narrow party political agenda.
So you've heard OUTsurance clients talking about all the money they saved when they switched. You've thought about getting a quote, but you're not sure if they could save you money on your car insurance, or if it's worth the effort. Well, make today the day you get an OUTsurance quote. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. If OUTsurance can't beat your car insurance premium, ask them for 500 Rand cash. And make that 1,500 Rand cash if you've been claim-free and with the same insurer for 3 years. Monthly savings on your car insurance or cash in your pocket. Either way, you're a winner, like Tulani.
Fast, helpful, efficient, everything was so smooth. I saved 530 bucks.
Make today the day you switch and save. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. With OUTsurance, you always get something out. A licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
A new client, a bulk discount, a chance to expand. Business opportunities don't wait, but with a Standard Bank Business Revolving Loan, neither do you. Get up to 10 million Rand in funding, access it anytime, and borrow again as you repay, giving your business the cash flow it needs when it needs it. Keep your business growing with a Standard Bank Business Revolving Loan. Visit standardbank.co.za/business loans to apply. Standard Bank is an authorized FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
Can one word unlock eternal glory? Okay, maybe just a shiny trophy and bragging rights. It's Password US, hosted by the king of chaos himself, Jimmy Fallon. Celebrities try to guess words. Hilarity ensues. Logic? Optional. Laughter guaranteed. Password US, where saying the right word might win the game, but saying the wrong one is way more fun. Password US, Saturdays 7:30 on S3. Say it like you mean it, or don't. We're not judging.
X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Right, so that's Johan Rupert, but there's more, of course. Now the DA leader, but the Agriculture Minister, John Steenhuisen, was part of that delegation that met with Donald Trump and company at the White House, and he made the point about farmers in South Africa and where they are invested in.
The White House. I would say we have a rural safety problem in South Africa. I don't think anyone wants to candy coat that. And it requires a lot of effort to get on top of it. It's going to require more policing resources. It's going to require a different strategy to be able to deal with it. But certainly the majority of South Africa's commercial and smallholder farmers really do want to stay in South Africa and make it work. And I've just come from the largest agricultural show in the Southern Hemisphere with organized agriculture and farmers, and the majority of them want to stay. But they too there have a memorial to those who've died as a result of farm attacks. And as the Minister of Agriculture, it is something that I'm particularly exercised with my colleagues at police and my colleagues in the justice cluster to start making farm attacks and stock theft a priority crime. And it affects all farmers in South Africa, particularly stock theft. It has a disproportionate effect on smallholder black farmers. I also want to just say this, that the two individuals that are in that video that you've seen are both leaders of opposition minority parties in South Africa. Umkhonto we Sizwe under Mr. Zuma and the Economic Freedom Fighters under Mr. Malema. Now the reason that my party, the Democratic Alliance, which has been an opposition party for over 30 years, chose to join hands with Mr. Ramaphosa's party was precisely to keep those people out of power. We cannot have those people sitting in the union buildings making decisions. And that is why after 30 years of us exchanging barbs across the floor in Parliament and trying to get one over on each other, we've decided to join hands precisely to keep that lot out of government. Because the day they get in to the doors of the union buildings in South Africa or control of our Parliament, that's what you're going to see. And that is why this government, working together, needs the support of our allies around the world so that we can strengthen our hand, grow our economy, and shut the door forever on that rabble getting through the doors of the union buildings, because then South Africa's future would be...
So interesting, John Steenhuisen talking about the rebel, referring to Julius Malema, who, sorry, in many ways is central to the whole conversation around the Boers and the farmers and the chants that him and his party does sing ever so often, isn't it? On the one hand, I think Steenhuisen was very clear about stating the case that they are in opposition, they're not in government, which I think Ramaphosa also made the point. And it's true that is not the official position of South Africa as a country, right? But he also then went further, effectively, to push the DA line, to say that's why we exist here, and that's why we collaborate with, let's say, Ramaphosa and company to keep the MK party and the EFF out. And I'm not too sure whether that's true for everybody, but maybe I'll be true for the DA and certainly for John Steenhuisen. And I wonder, many people felt that he was very narrow in terms of putting that focus on and whether that really matters for the rest of the world. On the other hand, he did state the case of working together. So like it or not, he is a manifestation of the GNU in some form or the other. Now, what about COSATU? Well, they are part of the tripartite alliance with the African National Congress. We've had business. We've also had labor. And Zingizwa Losi, she spoke about some of the most important issues that labor, and I would think business, would also raise at any forum. This is what she said.
The importance of us growing the economy. We have always emphasized when we were here and kept on coming and negotiating on AGOA that the 600 US companies that are based in South Africa, as you said, President Ramaphosa, 500,000 jobs will be wiped out. We need more foreign direct investment in our country. We are not just talking about those that will lose employment, but we are talking about over 40% of people that are unemployed, that have no hope of ever finding a job. And we think that, correctly, as they have said, that we need to deal with the issue of porous borders in our country so that everyone that comes in is documented. We also need to, and I would have thought that the minister would address the issue of land expropriation and how the policy works in South Africa. Recently, President, as you were preparing to come here on the news, in, I think, KwaZulu-Natal, there was a handover of farms. And white farmers were saying, we are donating the land, but also there's a willing buyer, willing seller in South Africa. So there is no expropriation without compensation. But it is a willing buyer, willing seller. And that white farmer was even saying, President, that the government is even paying more in buying the land than what the land is worth of. And I think those are the realities, President, that we must say that we need to address, of course, but also the importance of agriculture linked to AGOA. People rely on it, and I think, as Retief have said, for survival and living. But lastly, for me, President, is also the issue of the crime statistics. There is no doubt about it that we are a violent nation, for a number of reasons, and we are not condoning anything. But also, if you go into the rural areas where black majority are, you would see women, elderly, being raped, being killed, being murdered. And these are black elderly women that would be found throat slits, raped multiple times, and all of that. And the problem in South Africa, it is not necessarily about race, but it is about crime. And we think that we are here to say, how do we, both nations, work together to reset, to really talk about investment, but also help us in how we can have the technology and everything that is needed, President, to really address the levels of crime that we have in our country. Thank you very much.
And that's the thoughts of Zingiz Losi, and well, speaking extensively about a range of issues. But you know that last part that she made about about crime, when Donald Trump really, I would say, maliciously bringing up the issues of crime and showing the videos, which a lot of it was just not true, like the mass graves, which are not graves but actually symbols of people dying. And then the other issue that he brought up, that effectively was not South Africa but the DRC, right? When he brought all that up, the one thing that Ramaphosa agreed upon is that we have a serious crime problem in our country. And listen, this is what I've said extensively as well. If we all agree we have a serious crime problem in our country and it's been going on for 20 years or even longer, then why are we just allowing it to happen? Like, why are we not treating it like absolutely priority number one in our country to say we have to deal with this thing? These apologies of, we will leave no stone unturned. I mean, clearly that's going to have to stop, and have to stop soon. There's some comments I'll see if I can pick up on just before we get to the news. People like Elon Musk and anyone else are not supposed to be allowed to speak about South Africa because they live outside the country. Not everything they see on the internet is the truth. They mustn't be given the platform to criticize our country because they are billionaires. Even people with money lie a lot without facts, from Brian Mabai. Do you think that's the case? First of all, I mean, my understanding is that it was Trump who urged them to attend, and Ramaphosa and company agreed. But was it negative that they arrived there and they pitched up? Marius saying, let me see, growing up in the Western Cape, Pap was never no. Let me see. Steenhuisen's his speech is so cringy. And Rupert unifying star of the show. Wow, there's been a lot of that. Johan Rupert unifying star. I did say I thought he was speaking in Parliament. That's the type of language I often hear in Parliament. Okay, 4:30. Here's the news headlines with Ondela.
Thank you, Ashraf. On the news headlines, Gauteng Premier Panyaza Lesufi has congratulated the South African delegation led by President Cyril Ramaphosa for the way they handled the meeting with U.S. President Donald Trump at the White House. 30 learners have been rushed to Gelekspan Hospital near Lichtenburg in Northwest with minor injuries after a collision involving their bus and a minibus taxi. Both vehicles were carrying a total of 80 learners. A delegation from the United Kingdom visiting Parliament says they will try to find out why EFF leader Julius Malema's visa application was delayed when he was to travel to Britain 2 weeks ago. A full update follows at the top of the hour with Kulufelo Defu.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N1 southbound in Midrand has a crash before Olifantsfontein Road. The N12 R24 westbound in Bedfordview has a crash before Giluli's interchange, and the N14 southbound in Centurion has a crash before Brakfontein interchange. In KZN, the N3 westbound, a crash before the M13 Paradise Valley interchange, and the N3 eastbound has a stationary truck reported at Cliffdale. In Cape Town, the R300 southbound has ramp closure reported, so no access to the N2 outbound due to protest action. The N1 outbound is queuing towards Kuburg interchange, and the M3 southbound queuing towards Rhodes Drive. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
Right, Tui, what are we going to touch on now?
Well, there are 12 new players that have been called up by Bafana Bafana coach Hugo Bruce in his preliminary squad for the June international friendlies. Mbegazile Mbogazi of Orlando Pirates, Club Bruce's Chandre Campbell and Bruduzi Shabalala of Kaizer Chiefs are amongst the youngsters who have made the cut. And Bruce is using the friendlies to test new players and did not select any Mamelodi Sundowns players as they have a busy schedule, including the Club World Cup. Meanwhile, Kaizer Chiefs DStv Diski Challenger coach Dylan Shepherd has heaped praise on the Reserve League in the decade since it was first launched. Now, Chiefs was recently crowned champions of DDC, the first time that they've done so in 10 years. And Shepherd says that the standard of the league is of high quality with a direct impact of the senior teams of the respective clubs.
Huge role. I mean, if you go through now the teams this season, I mean, I'll just go, let's say Richards Bay, Bomelo, Zikali, Ngema, you know, all of them were featured prominently in the DDC season. They're all playing first team. If you look at Stellies with Jurgens, and you look at Tylen Smith has got to look. Abrahams has got to look in the first team. You've got Mdaka, you've got Pili. All these players are playing regularly or on the bench for the first team. So it's played a huge role in regular game time, and also too the competitiveness of the league is really, really got better.
In the meantime, CAF Africa Club Association Vice President Jessica Mdong says that the growing number of clubs qualifying for CAF competitions is a clear sign of progress in African football. Mdong added that continental competitions have played a key role in developing the game further.
It's important for the clubs. I mean, inter-club competitions are very, very key. And I must say, it's wonderful to see clubs on the continent. You talk about the growth. I think it's the growth of clubs, to see the clubs grow, their brands, build their support base is very exciting. And an event of this nature is saying that the game is going to the next level. And for us as the ACA, it's critical that our clubs are growing, that we're seeing our fan base is growing, that the product is growing on television, but also through the club experiences. You're seeing the match day experience being improved by clubs. And for us, it's important that investments like that of Total and other sponsors are being made into the game so that clubs in their own right can really build on the success.
Also, Manchester United captain Bruno Fernandes says that he's willing to leave the club if it helps them rebuild after the Europa League final loss. United went down 1-0 to Tottenham Hotspur and Bilbao, ending a tough season. Coach Ruben Amorim also said that he would step aside if the club no longer wanted him. Fernandes says that he is always honest and will stay at the club until they tell him it's time to go. However, from his point of view, Amorim is the right man for the job.
I do think he's the right man. Without a shadow, I don't think what happened this season shows exactly what he is as a manager. Obviously, it's the results always talk louder. But I do think he's the right manager for the future of this club. Either with me or not, I still think that he's the right man.
Moving on to rugby, Stormers fullback Damian Willemse has been suspended for a high tackle on Cardiff wing Abraham Webb. Willemse was red-carded in the 58th minute of the URC match at Cape Town Stadium last Friday. According to reports, the 27-year-old pleaded guilty in order to receive a more lenient sentence. He was given a 6-match ban, which was reduced by 50% due to his good disciplinary record, and Willemse will therefore miss the Stormers URC quarterfinal against Glasgow on the 30th of May and their semi-final should they reach that stage. Finally, in tennis, Alexander Zverev will be the third seed for the French Open, but the 28-year-old's prospects of winning his first Grand Slam title in Paris are not looking good. The Hamburg native is making his 10th appearance at Roland Garros in what will be his 37th Grand Slam main draw and will again be one of the headline acts during the tournament. Whether he can finally become the leading man before time ticks away, however, is a regular topic of debate. Now, Zverev has reached the final last year, losing to Carlos Alcaraz and the semi-finals in each of the 3 years. Before that, he also lost in this year's Australian Open final to Yannick Sinner when he went down with something of a whimper. Now, Ashraf, before I say goodbye, we've heard of your heartbreak from yesterday with Manchester United and you having to leave the event.
It wasn't a heartbreak. You can't be heartbroken.
You look sad today, Ashraf.
No,
be
that's
honest.
fine. Heartbreak is like when there's tears.
Be honest.
No, South Africa means more to me than Man United. I mean, seriously. No,
anyway,
as a country. Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, how did the pedal
Well, it's significant. So just to recap, I mean, it's a new sport. It's growing. It's growing massively. So,
yeah.
And there's an organization called 360 Paddle who then created a league based on the IPL. Where you get players from 6 teams and they choose players and they get them auctioned off. Right, we're talking smaller money now compared to obviously established sports like cricket and rugby and IPL and all that type of stuff. But my sense is there were 6 teams that they probably it cost them to buy the players via the auction on average, and I'm guessing now about 150,000 rands per team of 10 players. Right, which means collectively close to 1 million rands was changed hands yesterday, and all the money that they bid for the players goes to the player. Okay, directly as like a signing on fee, as nothing else. Which for an absolute beginning sport or beginner sport, it shows you the investment of that sport in this in this country.
Absolutely, and it's growing
fabulous.
in leaps and bounds.
Absolutely.
Paddle.
Yeah.
Everyone plays paddle nowadays.
Well, there you are. Everyone, even including Jimmy. Yeah.
Yeah. With that said, I'll have more in the next hour.
From immunity boosters to self meds, let Dis-Chem help you thrive this winter. Get 20% off all A. Vogel Echinoforce products. Buy any 3 Slowmax supplements and get the cheapest free. Relieve your cough with 2+1 cheapest free on any Benylin products. Find incredible deals on everything you need to nurture your mental and physical health. Offers end 15 June. T's and C's apply. Shop now at Dis-Chem pharmacies. Better health starts here.
Every person, no matter who you are, what music you're inclined to listen to, and what you do with your weekends. You need a weekend playlist. It's that musical mix of music that accompanies the lazy weekends, whether catching up with friends and family or just taking some time to reflect. Tune in to The Soundtrack of Your Life with me, Ernest Pillay, Saturdays and Sundays, 1 to 4 on SAFM.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
All right, we normally talk, in fact, I'm just double check if we do have Makwe on the line with us right away. I think we should. And by the way, we're going to have some other conversations later on that you probably you should not want to miss. One of them is about the Witkruis or Plaasmoorder monument. We'll talk about that just now, right? But let's get first things first up with Baswana Mpatlele. In fact, he's the Senior Accounts Manager at Makwe Fund Managers. Baswana, good to connect with you. You've got local and global news. But let's start with Investec. I passed their building last night at Greyston Drive. To start with them.
Well, actually, we should have given them the cheers because they reported on a disciplined financial performance. Adjusted operating profit up 4%. Return on equity are sitting steady at 14%. Their revenues growing modestly nicely thanks to the benefiting of higher interest rates, clients increasing fund inflows, especially in South Africa, up 12%. Yes, the profit as per headline earnings per share is flat, but their financial indicators below that are improving. You think of loans and deposits up 5%. They're paying a higher dividend, and they're announcing a share buyback. So all good there. Into the markets, Ashraf, there, yes, bond yields have been rising, spooking investors and creating this uncertainty, looking at the VIX at 20, as they worry that actually the lower rate cuts are actually decreasing and are moving into a neutral standpoint as growth is phased in. Today's data reflected some of this. Looking at the PMI business activity in May, Europe was surprisingly on the downside when you look at the service sector, but manufacturing is ticking up. But the US was an expansion greater than expected, increasing new orders. This development has supported the dollar that has been weakening and is now reflecting rise. And this prints lower highs for the gold price, down 0.6 at $3,292 an ounce. Oil prices is down 0.6 at $64.15 a barrel, as there was further pressure by the OPEC considering increasing production as they see growth forward. US, in terms of equities, let's start with that Bitcoin there. It's sold and is oversold, but has hit an all-time high of 2 million when you look at it in rands. US equities are higher opening, as the data has provided some positivity. Nasdaq is up 0.5, although the DAX and the S&P 500 is lagging. Europe indices drop on that mixed data. They are down 0.8 across the board. Locally, we are mirroring some of the global sentiment. The JS is down 0.4. Our financial and resource sector were down 0.5. Industrial down 0.4, with a stronger dollar rising now, pushing the rents a bit of weakness there, losing some momentum. Rent against the dollar is sitting around 18.79 actually. Rand against the euro is at 20.30 and rand against the pound 24.15.
Perfect. And there we are. So interesting results coming out of Investec. Appreciate your time. We'll connect again tomorrow. Right. Let's get on to other issues. I will try and get to your calls too, and must squeeze in some of the voice notes and some of the text messages that you've sent. But let's talk about something that is so topical on the basis of what we had talking about last night.
This May, SAFM celebrates Africa Month with you as we honor the legacy of the Organization of African Unity. We bring you rich conversations and the vibrant sounds of Africa. Music that moves the soul. This is SAFM. Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
So, often when we engage, you're on the air and people say, well, I like Trump because he's so straightforward. And I always said straightforward doesn't mean he's right. He sometimes gets things completely wrong, right? Now, yesterday, he referenced two issues that were important. One are these graves of the many white Afrikaner farmers who were killed, and the other is the issue of people being killed in South Africa. We found that second one was actually not in South Africa. It was recently in the DRC, right? And mass murders of people. So visually, they got that completely wrong. As far as the graves are concerned, they were not actual graves. They were symbols of people who died, and they were like crosses or axes, right, on a street. But anyway, he called them graves, mass graves, and it was completely wrong about that. And you just wonder, with all that level of intelligence, or that may, and I don't mean brightness, intelligence in terms of information gathering coming from his group, how do they get that wrong? In the same way, how do they still get it wrong about the issue of genocide, meaning that they're sticking with their guns, that there's a big difference between people pronouncing and government policy, and people pronouncing and actually acting on an active move to drive people out of a country because they have a certain ethnicity. So we'll talk about that with Pimani Baloyi just now, right? But in the meantime, let's get to some of your voice notes, right? And particularly, there's quite a few about Rupert, Johan Rupert.
Good day, this is Nkosi from Durban. I'm so proud of Johan Rupert. I'm really am proud. It just goes to show that if you listen to politicians and you don't judge a person with their action, with what they say, you really get lost. Really am so proud. And if you look at what was happening there, and you look at it based on race, you'll really get lost. But I'm so proud of Johan Rupert.
Well, there you are, proud of Johan Rupert. I'm not too sure when last I heard that from just the average person, but maybe you're this rich businessman. I don't know, but certainly we've heard that before. We're still hearing it once again. Let's play another one about Rupert.
Hi, Ashraf. This is Sabata from Durban. I think going forward, South Africa will have to engage on a PR exercise, especially internationally, overseas. Let me just put it that way. Clarifying the issues, these controversial issues that we have forced down our throats, which are not true. So we need to do a PR exercise to clarify issues, so that everyone understands what's really happening in South Africa. Thank you.
Well, I agree with you, and something I brought up, and of course I've worked often with Brand SA through my own Champion South African project, and they do fabulous work. But I think outside of presidential issues, there's a greater need now to market South Africa globally and what we truly are about and what we stand for outside the political space. Here's another voice note.
Good afternoon, that's Ashraf. It's for the tracker here in Free State. Ashraf, the greatest moment for me of that meeting was when John Vulligate Steenhuisen tried to put EFF and MK under the bus. And guess what? Johan Rupert was there to save the day. He actually put him under the reality check bus.
Okay, in fact, we played that one again, but okay, unintentionally. So here we are. Let's get to some of the calls now. We have Hassan Logat on the line. Hassan, good to chat with you. Hi.
Hi, Ashraf. My take last night was I have a fear that Julius probably was thrown under the bus, and I thought it was a bit unfair. We have a democracy. We all praise the democracy, the right to speak freely, but everything seemed to be geared towards Julius, and we are keeping him out. That's what we're doing these things for. And I think that it's not only setting Julius back, whatever misgivings we have of Julius and others, is that it's setting back any attempt at a radical transformation. And this is what I fear, because anything else, we are trying to keep those people out. What is the substance of what Julius and them are trying to talk about?
Well, let's talk about that. So when you say Julius was thrown under the bus, by whom?
By the minister who's in the GNU, who's got the most violent townships under him that he's not controlling. He is there as a government spokesperson and was doing party rallying. And I think that was wrong. And then also what you found, I know the other business guy was very well praised. Him too spoke about, search me up and see how much Julius and I come up. And then when you read Rob Hershoff and when you read Pollack and others, Hershoff has even gone as far as to say that Julius should be put on the terrorist list. So really, I think that this is bad for us. We're not there. We're there to, of course, defend, etc. It's not our terrain. But, when you start doing that kind of stuff, any of us who prefer to have a radical idea is going to be put down as these others who should be kept out.
Well, I think you're right, and I think the point about your John Sionesan is something that I just touched on earlier as well. And it's true, he was very party political, and Johan Rupert did mention that, I know you since those days, so point made. But let's talk about Julius Malema. I mean, you see, is it fair to say that right or wrong, I'm not discussing other policies of the EFF, but the pronouncements around dealing with the, let's call it the farmers or the Boers, or kill the farmer and kill the Boer, in terms of its impact right now, is it advancing South Africa's interest, or is it counterproductive? Meaning, we know Trump got it wrong again, maybe even intentionally so, using that as the example, because that's not South African government policy, as Ramaphosa said. But does it not put South Africa as a country on the back foot when we see visuals like that?
Last night you could have asked Trump what was his mother's middle name, and you're going to have the same reaction. They were there to really do what they wanted to do. They're not reasonable people. 6th of January, what he did a few years ago, was blatant terrorism, more than what Julius could have said. You could not have that debate with him. They were assaulting police. Some people died. Clearly, there was no space to discuss there. So I don't begrudge the people trying to hold the line and make sure that, But I must say, I wonder whether President Xi would actually treat South Africa the way he did, or treat Zelensky the way he did. And there's something that is rude about that whole behavior. Shouldn't condone it, because whatever you could have asked, if his surname was Drum, Trump was going to come back to that. This is a hit was planned all along.
Well, I have no doubt about that. You could see even with his slating the CNBC or CBC reporter. But that's Trump's style. That's why I'm saying, why would we even be surprised at that? That's exactly what he says, and he sort of mocked the guy in front of Ramaphosa like just some sort of an idiot. But the last thing, okay, you can't comment, Hassan. Thanks for that. But I think the last thing we should all remember is that isn't that one of the dangers that when you've got a group of 5 or 6 people that are talking together to a group and you're unable to caucus them in advance, that there's always it's incredibly difficult to ensure that every one of the 5 or 6 people speak in sync. We can think about it even at a reduced family level. Try and get 6 people to think the same way and articulate that the same way. That's difficult. So there's going to be a problem in terms of being compromised when they go out unbriefed, isn't it? This is the National Pulse.
Mara, why? Why is the boss of breaking down spreadsheets now on the side of the road breaking down in a broken down car? Mara, why? Why aren't you insured with Santam, the leading short-term insurer that gives you emergency roadside assistance and home drive services when you need them most? To switch, call 0860 444 444 or SMS cover to 36101. Santam. This is freedom. Santam is an authorized FSP, a licensed non-life insurer and controlling company for its group companies.
With the ever-changing financial landscape, it can be difficult to make sense of all the moves at times. Join me, Jimmy Moyaha, on the SAFM Market Update with MoneyWeb, Mondays to Thursdays, 6 to 7 p.m, as we break down the key market trends, top financial stories, and smart investment insights, all in one place. It's everything you need to stay financially informed and ahead of the curve. Proudly brought to you by Volvo. It's safe to be brave with Volvo.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
Okay, we should be trying to connect with Pimani Baloyi. Can't do that right now regarding, she did a whole story on going to what is called the Witkruis or the Plaasmoorde Monument outside Mokopane earlier today, just to confirm that that's a memorial site, not an actual burial site, burial site that's completely different, right? Okay, more thoughts. I must tell you, we're going to chat, by the way, to get another take on this issue with Dr. Chris Landsberg. That comes up just after 5 o'clock. Looking forward to that conversation, right? So, Peter in Durban, go for it. Hello.
Yes, Ashraf. Thanks for taking the call. Two things for me, extraordinary. First of all, I'm not sure who's most traumatized, perhaps the NBC reporter who really got dragged out and was called a jerk, etc., which, I started to laugh when I saw that. It was a clear indication of just what a circus it was. But two professional golfers standing up in the highest level of international diplomacy, then you've got to understand and know we're not dealing with a normal situation here. And the bottom line is I thought Team SA did extremely well. I think that in the difficult circumstances they kept their cool. And yes, you can nitpick and criticize. But you know what John Steenhuisen said, and I'm not here to defend him, but what else is he supposed to say? They're trying to maintain a relationship with the United States who believe that the country is run by people like Malema. And he's basically saying, listen, I'm here to help ensure that doesn't happen. As far as I'm concerned, he said what he had to say to Donald Trump.
Okay.
Well, I think a lot of people are very naive when they think that they're dealing with an ordinary politician. It's quite clear they're not.
Well, Peter, I hear you. Your line's not great, but I hear you. And in a different way, John Steenhuisen is saying something similar to what Ramaphosa said when Trump showed all those graphics of Julius Malema as if that's the policy of South Africa. And he made the point that's not South Africa policy, that's one party, and that is not the policy of the country. So in a similar way, but very different, John Steenhuisen, of course, and he did push his own party line, which Ramaphosa didn't do, making the point that that's it. What he should have said, perhaps, is that again, like Ramaphosa said, is not the party line. And I can tell you now there's no genocide because he said that already like a week before in South Africa. Right, let's get to a story, that you're not going to like to hear about, but we need to cover it anyway.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
So here's a story of the families, of two babies who were abducted on Tuesday night from the Dora Nginza hospital in Gqeberha. And they're still looking for answers, the families, understandably. So the babies were stolen from the nursery while still in incubators. So we're talking about absolute newborn children, aren't we? With security guards present as well. They were then, thank goodness, returned late yesterday and reunited with their mothers. But what actually happened there? We can't let this continue. Sisipo Ngumbe is the SABC News reporter in the Eastern Cape. Sisipo, appreciate your time and thanks for connecting on the National Pulse.
Thank you so much, and hello to the listeners as well.
Thank you. The shining light of the story is that they were returned yesterday, but in between all that, there's so many questions to ask. So perhaps tell us what you know. Oh, we may have just lost Sisipo just for a moment, and hopefully we'll connect with her once again about that story of those children. Just a quick one. So let me tell you what else is going to come up here, right? We should be chatting to Chris Landsberg just now. And then, if you're aware, there's so many things happening in terms of the investment in what we make in our country. We'll chat to Professor Ananya Bola Muller, the head of delegation and chair of the W20 South Africa, W20 SA. So we can talk about women in leadership coming up around 20+5. Do not miss that, right? It also reflects that there are many things that we do as a country that is wrong and problematic, and Ramaphosa made the point about crime, but there are many other things that we do that are just brilliant, and we do need to find those gems, isn't it? Okay, Sisipo, we've got you there. Hi.
Apologies,
no,
my apologies.
It's fine, yeah. So I was saying, I'm glad that they've been returned yesterday, but before that, there are so many questions, and perhaps you can give us context
Absolutely.
as to what actually happened here.
So we first got a whiff of the story yesterday morning. We were contacted by one of the family members of the young girls. One of the young girls who actually gave birth here is, a young girl, 16 years old. So it was her aunt who contacted us and actually said, this happened. You guys need to come and cover it. So absolutely, we rushed here to the hospital, which is in Gqeberha. For those of you who might know, an area, called New Brighton, called KwaZakhele. So it's in the township area, really. So we were told by this lady then that her niece had been breastfeeding the baby last night around 7-ish, and then she just turned around for a second, and of course these babies are kept in incubators. So she left her baby in the incubator, and a few minutes later the nurses came to ask her, "Where is your baby?" Which obviously shocked her, because what do you mean, where's my baby? She's supposed to be in the incubator. So really that's where everything took off, and they found out that a second woman's baby was also missing. And of course then the hunt began, and they were looking and they were trying to find, and it turned out they actually looked at the CCTV footage, which was what led to the actual solving of who this lady was, because her identity was then revealed. You could see that she was wearing a pink gown, as though she was also a patient. She also had with her quite a large bag, which is quite peculiar, because a large bag like that, not only in a maternity ward, but actually walking into the area where the premature babies are kept. So there are a lot of questions about security. How did that woman get into there? And there are just a lot of questions right now surrounding exactly what the service at the maternity ward is, which is why right now we actually have the MEC of Health in the Eastern Cape actually addressing. They first had a closed meeting with the family, and now they are addressing the media.
And what's the mood of the people? I'm talking about the mother. What can you say about the children themselves and the extended families? I mean, anything else that you think you'd like to share that's really important to know?
Yeah. So I think, as I said, one of the mothers is quite young. So we have spoken to her family members, but not directly to her yet. And the mom did say that there is sort of a heartbreak there, even though the child has actually been brought, back. And she was saying that at the same time, that same family is actually dealing with, burying their father. So it's quite a sad time for them. So this on top of that was quite sad. And I think that another thing that the aunt actually raised this morning was that a lot of the patients do have some choice words about the service at the maternity ward. Of course, we have spoken to the Department of Health, and they said that they would be investigating the circumstances that led to this. But the actual claims towards them were that the maternity ward, the service is not the best. That our aunt told us that the premature baby that was actually stolen, his arm had been broken from during his birth, and they said that they couldn't understand how that happened. They weren't correctly told, explained to what happened. So there's a lot of questions around the actual service outside of this, but how this actually happened, the service, whether the moms are being helped, whether the moms are being coached inside. So there's a lot of questions surrounding that. But of course, we are, expecting an investigation by the MEC of Health.
Okay, that's where we can leave it. Appreciate your time. I'm just glad the babies have been returned, but this is just a terrible story. There's again question marks about just the ease of actually abducting children, in this case, any person really, from a hospital. And we know, I know, it happens far more than we can never like it, but it just happens just far too frequently. Unacceptable, isn't it? Let's get the news. It's just gone 5 o'clock. Here's Kolofelo.
Thank you, Ashraf. Top stories. The Sawa Lesufi commends South African delegation to the US, and UK delegation addresses Malema's visa delay. Good afternoon. Gauteng Premier Panyaza Lesufi has congratulated the South African delegation led by President Cyril Ramaphosa for the way they handled the meeting with US President Donald Trump at the White House. Lesufi was addressing members of the media in Midrand, north of Johannesburg, to provide an update on key developments and decisions arising from the recent Provincial Executive Council meeting. He touched on a number of issues, including Gauteng's preparedness to host the G20 summit and the filling of potholes. Lesufi says President Ramaphosa and the team represented the country well.
I'm really pleased that the president really went there open-minded, made us proud, and we want to thank the entire delegation across. Obviously, it was tense, difficult, But I think the country can be proud now that indeed our president came out of that session smelling roses and ready to then execute the trade relations that we want, which is very important to us.
30 learners have been rushed to Gelykspan Hospital near Lichtenburg in Northwest with minor injuries after a collision involving their bus and a minibus taxi. Both vehicles were carrying a total of 80 learners. The Department of Community Safety says learners from the R.A. Kobue Secondary School were rushed to Mahikeng Provincial Hospital. The department says 65 learners were in the bus and 15 in the taxi. Itumeleng Khajani reports.
According to the department, a taxi ferrying learners and educators to the same school of R.A. Kobue overtook and abruptly stopped in front of the bus when the accident happened. They say alternative transport has been arranged to transport learners. Meanwhile, the EFF in Northwest has blamed this on unroadworthy buses, contrary to the statement of the department. It is calling for intervention of Premier Lazarus Mokhosi on the scholar transport issues. Itumeleng Khajani, SABC News, Mahikeng.
Police in KZN have rearrested a 28-year-old man who is the suspect in a number of rape cases involving school children in the Nkandla area. The man escaped earlier this week as police officers were preparing to transfer him to a correctional facility. He was initially apprehended by members of a taxi association at Nkandla. After the escape, the police set up a dedicated team to track him down. Provincial police spokesperson Robert Nechiunda says the suspect was located in Umbilo outside the Durban CBD.
The suspect will appear in the Pinetown Magistrate Court today, being Thursday, 22nd May 2025, on a charge of escaping from lawful custody. He will then be transferred to Ekombe, where he will face several cases of rape, in which allegedly targeted learners who reside at cottages of a school in Nkandla.
In the Northern Cape, a man who assaulted and burned a woman with hot water has been sentenced to 5 years imprisonment. 37-year-old Frans de Vier attacked the 42-year-old woman who had a protection order against him. Police spokesperson Sergio Kok.
Frans de Vier was sentenced to 5 years for the contravention of protection order and assault with the intent to cause previous bodily harm. On 29 December 2024, De Vier severely burned a 42-year-old female victim with hot water in Griquastad and was later arrested. He was sentenced on 25 years direct imprisonment in the Griquastad Magistrates Court.
And finally, a delegation from the United Kingdom visiting Parliament says they will try to find out why EFF leader Julius Malema's visa application was delayed when he was to travel to Britain 2 weeks ago. The delegation met with members of Parliament on Parliament's Defence Portfolio Committee and International Relations. Their group, made up of members of Parliament from both members of the Conservative and Labour parties, met with their South African counterparts to engage on various international alliances and defense partnerships. The EFF's Carl Neers asked the delegation about the recent incident. Malema was scheduled to address the Africa Together conference at Cambridge University. One of the UK delegates, Said Kamal, a member of the House of Lords, says they are aware of the matter.
It's been raised with us. By the way, we are different parties. We're not spoken for the government, and that's not an excuse. That's just a fact. And what we will do, we will raise it with our British consul tonight to find out the fact. From what I know, and this is not official, I do not think there is any policy to exclude someone from the EFF. I suspect, frankly, maybe I shouldn't say this is on camera, but we know what bureaucracies are like, and sometimes, frankly, it could well have been a result of bureaucracy. But we will take that back.
The top story this hour, Gauteng Premier Panyaza Lesufi has congratulated the South African delegation led by President Cyril Ramaphosa for the way they handled the meeting with U.S. President Donald Trump at the White House. Headlines at 5:30 for SAFM News. I'm Kolofelo Tefo.
In sports, Luka Modric to leave Madrid end of season. Draw for 2027 Rugby World Cup to take place in December. And Zverev still in search for elusive Grand Slam. More details at 5:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N1 northbound in Pretoria is a crash before Rigel Avenue. The N12 R24 westbound in Bedford has a crash before Gilunis interchange. All lanes are open. And the N1 northbound in Midrand has a crash after Allendale Road. In KZN, the N3 northbound, a truck crash recovery before the Mooirivier exit. The N3 westbound has a stationary vehicle at Camperdown. And the N2 northbound, a stationary vehicle near Sibaya Drive. In Cape Town, the N2 outbound is slow moving towards the R300 interchange. The M5 southbound is queuing towards the N2 highway exit, and the R300 southbound has ramp closure reported, so there's no access to the N2 outbound due to protest action. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
Stay safe on the roads. SAFM is with you.
CFI, a global leader in online trading, is now in South Africa. Access 15,000 plus instruments, currencies, stocks, metals, crypto CFDs, indices, futures, and more on world-class platforms. Enjoy zero pip spreads, no commission fees, and 24/7 support for confident trading. Visit cfi.trade for a secure, transparent trading experience. Don't miss the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda, Tuesdays at 16:45, proudly sponsored by CFI. CFI Financial, an authorized financial services provider. T's and C's apply.
The land is their legacy, but in season 3 of Yellowstone, that legacy is under fire. Kevin Costner returns as John Dutton, fighting to protect his ranch, his family, and everything that can't be bought. More enemies, deeper betrayal, and the battle for the West, it's only just begun. Yellowstone Season 3. This land was won with blood, and it'll take more to keep it. Saturdays at 9:30. Starts 24 May. Only on S3. Open up.
The boys of Radu Davids are searching for 2 early goals to get back to the game in Zanzibar. But their Moroccan visitors want to finish off what they started in Pikani. Wekundu Wamsimbazi battles it out with the Orange Boys. This is the second leg final contest of the Total Energies CAF Confederation Cup. Do not miss out on the spectacular clash of African football. Simba Sports Club versus RSP Picard AFC. This Sunday, 25 May at 2:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC One. Also available on SABC radio stations. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Slipper Day is on the 30th of May, and I'm helping to make big dreams come true. When you support Slipper Day, you're helping Reach for a Dream bring smiles and joy to children facing tough illnesses. Do you want to help too? You can visit reachforadream.org.za to find out more about Slipper Day.
Let's do it for the dreamers.
This is an SABC supported initiative.
This May, SAFM celebrates Africa Month with you as we honor the legacy of the Organization of African Unity. We bring you rich conversations and stories that shape the continent. Join us as we celebrate African pride, unity, and progress. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
I'll tell you what, there's no question that everybody has an opinion on Donald Trump versus Cyril Ramaphosa. I did call it a scrum before the event. Some people say it can't be. It's going to be all friendly, but it clearly was a scrum of thought. Senator Chris Van Holden from the USA, well, he tweeted saying Trump spewed out a gusher of lies in his meeting with the South African president. And then he said, as I told Rubio, they're promoting fake claims of genocide to justify admitting white South African refugees while ignoring real crises and shutting out real refugees. Global apartheid policy in action. I mean, that's just one thing. There are many others talking. Judith February saying what happened in the Oval Office now was simply a reflection on Trump and the US. Unhinged, chaotic, racist, embarrassing, uncommitted to truth, and lacking in any basic civility. As our history has shown, we make a way and will continue to do so. We are proudly South African. And I mean, that's not more. There is so much more than that. In fact, Clayson Moniela also tweeting, saying in 2023, Russian President Vladimir Putin said, President Ramaphosa showed unique diplomatic mastery during the BRICS summit. The verdict from experts on yesterday's White House talks is similar. And there's more. Right, what I'm trying to tell you is just how diverse opinions are across the nation, on people calling into the show, family WhatsApp groups. Goodness, we all have our opinions. So what is the thoughts then of Dr. Chris Landsberg? He's the chair of African Diplomacy and Foreign Policy at the University of Joburg. Chris, appreciate your time and thanks for connecting here on the National Pulse. Chris, do I have you there? Okay, let's just see if I can connect with Chris Landsberg in just a moment. We're just having a problem connecting with him. Chris, do I have you there once again? Yeah. No. Okay, we'll try and get to that in just as soon as we can sort that out. But anyway, I've just read out a few things. And here's another coming from Pumzile van Dam about Julius Malema. Tell you what about Julius Malema. You can love him, you can hate him, but you can never ignore him. His is a political brand so powerfully attention-grabbing, it has achieved global reach. I can't think of a single politician, South African opposition politician, good or bad, who has ever pulled that off. It is quite simply unprecedented. Is it good for the EFF? I'm not sure. It depends on how you define good. His fame doesn't necessarily translate into votes, but it's a fascinating case study in political brand building, and the real challenge is for the EFF lies in exactly that, converting notoriety into ballot box results. Okay, let's get Dr. Chris Landsberg on the line with us. Chris, good to connect with you as always on the National Pulse.
It's been a minute, my friend.
Absolutely. Right. Chris, as I prefaced talking to you, I've just sort of quoted 5 or 6 people offhand, right? What do you make? I mean, what's your overall assessment? We're looking to you for guidance and leading us on this one. What were you looking for in analyzing what to take out of yesterday's meetup, and therefore what you can conclude on that?
So I'll say this to you, that 24 hours is a long time in politics. The narrative yesterday, immediately after the happenings and the drama and theater in the Oval Office was not that there was an ambush, but it was almost like President Cyril Ramaphosa was the one that had to do damage control afterwards. I tell you what is beginning to emerge in terms of the leadership style of the U.S. president. A distinction is drawn worldwide in most of the analysis that I'm now reading, that yesterday you had 2 heads of states in the Oval Office, but you didn't necessarily have 2 statesmen in the office. Now you figure out which one behaved like the statesman and which one went for the jugular, trying to humiliate and almost pull a Zelensky.
But isn't that the point? The humiliation, the pulling a Zelensky, the knocking the CBC reporter, and I mean many others, is exactly completely par for the course with Donald Trump. So why would we be surprised?
Sure, Ashraf. I think, and I don't think President Trump is going to change his style. And by the way, he achieves a lot. So let's take the Liberation Day, the 2nd of February. The tariff onslaught, like a real estate man, you pitch it very high, and you hope the client will come back and you meet each other somewhere in the middle. The point, though, is that the world is now beginning during Trump 2.0 to get used to the style, and people are going to start to develop their own defense and response mechanism. And I think China's reaction during that tariff move was more than just standing up to America. It really declared that the world now has 2 superpowers, in case you haven't noticed, America.
So let's then talk about, three things in one go. One, Cyril Ramaphosa in particular, because there's so much attention on him because he's the president of the country anyway. How did he, come across, number one? Number two, if South Africa's plan really to meet up with the American counterparts was to effectively find a more meaningful way that they can do business relationships, engagement together, did they succeed on that? And the third part, there were many other players in the game, from some are political players, others were business players. They were all in the game representing South Africa in inverted commas. How did they all come across?
Yeah, so Ashraf, I will say this to you. President Trump really caught the president and the entire delegation, maybe not his delegation, I'm sure some of them knew, but I'm sure some of the media, by surprise, but the way the president kept his calm was astounding. But when the video clips were shown about two opposition leaders as evidence, Ashraf, of genocide against white people in South Africa, then I've got a question for the world's superpower. Is that really the intelligence that you could muster to show and prove genocide? How did the president come across? I can tell you now, because I work with Minister Lamola, there are three things that happen. President Trump goes for the theater, the spectacle where the media is there. After that, they all go to the more serious meetings outside of the media cameras, nobody around, off the record, and they have engagements with their counterparts. He has engagement. And thirdly, what I would therefore say to you, if Minister Staal, Steenhuisen, Shaveni, Lamola do come back and do what President Ramaphosa did afterwards with their press conference, I think you will find more successes than failures, and you will say mission accomplished. Where we have work to do at home, not in America, is the behavior of domestic actors who should have nothing to do with engaging in foreign policy. They can try and influence, but they can't make foreign policy for the country. The issue of genocide and the behavior of two NGOs and some political parties, that's an issue that will have to be confronted head on.
Okay, and the question is, how should that be confronted? Don't answer that now because we don't have the time, but I'll leave it as an open-ended question. All it means, Chris, we need to have another chat sometime soon. Chris Landsberg, Dr. Chris Landsberg, Chair of African Diplomacy and Foreign Policy at the University of Johannesburg. We'll talk about the Women 20 South Africa meeting, that is, right after this.
He's short, loud, and definitely not a licensed therapist, but he's asking the hard questions. It's Heart to Heart with Kevin, the only talk show where the guests spill the tea and Kevin spills the jokes. Real talk, real laughs, and real short host. Heart to Heart with Kevin, Wednesdays at 7 p.m. on S3.
Ultimate Value is opening an account with 34 benefits while getting her a treat. Ultimate Success is getting her the ballet shoes that you promised. With a 2,000 Rand balance booster, Ultimate Goals is living life on your own terms with a credit card with 0 monthly fees. Absa Ultimate Banking is about having it all in one account for 98 Rand per month. Apply online now. Your story matters. Absa, subject to affordability and scoring. T's and C's apply. Absa is an authorized FSP and a registered credit provider.
TUT ladies are on a humongous mission to play their hearts out. But Masandawana ladies believe they are unstoppable. This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. Do not miss out on the glittering action of Mzansi's women's football. TUT Ladies FC versus Mamelodi Sundowns Ladies FC on Sunday 25 May at 2:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus, SABC One, and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Right, let's get on to another important issue. You know, if we're talking about global politics is one thing, but the other is just developing South Africa, the South African state internally, right? And I would think, therefore, my conversation now with Professor Nania Bowler-Muller is so important. Prof. Bowler-Muller is the head of delegation and chair of W20SA, and W would mean women, right? She's also the divisional executive in the Developmental, Capable and Ethical State Research Division of the HSRC. Prof. Bowler-Muller, appreciate your time and thanks for connecting to us here on the National Pulse.
Yes, good afternoon. I'm sitting looking at the Table Mountain as we speak, so I'm smiling.
You are making us all very, very jealous, but fine. Imagination can certainly make up for the physical absence in this case here, right? Okay, you're sitting at the Table Mountain, so you're in Cape Town. Tell me about this important get-together of women specifically, I think, over the last 2 days.
Yes, that's right. So yeah, we're hosting the G20 this year. I think almost everybody knows that by now. And under the G20, there are engagement groups in the social track. We're not part of government. We're academia, researchers, businesswomen, NGOs. And we feed into the G20 process from that perspective. And what Women 20 concentrates on is mainstreaming gender equality and women's economic empowerment into the processes, and hopefully then reaching the leaders and convincing them that the issues that matter to women should be on the agenda. And it's a very exciting time. We had our induction or our inception meeting over the last 2 days in Cape Town, and it's been an incredible experience. It only ended about 10 minutes ago. It was a really great experience with women from all over the world and women from all over South Africa being together and caring about one thing, other women.
Okay, so how then do you succeed in achieving that goal of the issues of women and what they feel strongly about needs to be on the agenda, I would say, in a G20 year, but also beyond that, of course, right?
Of course. Women 20 has been in existence for 10 years. So every year for the last 10 years, we've released a communique, depending on which country was the presidency. And then that communique is fed into the process. And sometimes some of the points that we make, people hear, people see them. Other times we're not seen as very relevant. And I think this is a big problem. That women's voices are not taken seriously. So what I like about Women 20 is it's kind of a mass of women. It's a serious pressure from women all over the world to say, these are the things we are concerned about: gender-based violence and femicide. You've got to put it on the agenda. And we've got to stop talking about it and find solutions.
Okay, so practically, how do you do that? Turn the talking into a position where whoever holds the reins of power will actually agree with you and then drive the process where they do it and you do it on your own as well. How do you practically achieve that?
It's really about a network of women. So we have delegations of Women 20 in each of the G20 countries, the European Union and the African Union. And we mobilize within each of our countries around the issues that we're talking about. So that makes it quite powerful because it's international influence, but we also have local outreach programs, and that was part of our inception meeting at the moment, was this reaching out to young people in communities, for example, and asking them what the issues are. Anyway, we work in task teams as Women 20, from all over the world. We make recommendations, we put them into a communique, and we release the communique in October of this year at a summit. And then we lobby. We lobby with government to make sure that what we have done, it gets the attention that it deserves.
And when you lobby with government, I mean, that could be all governments of the world, right, at different times. How successful have you been?
50-50, I guess, which is actually not bad for women's issues. And also, it's difficult to reach consensus in the international space, and it takes a lot. So this year, for example, we're worried that if we put sexual and reproductive health on the agenda, it's going to be taken out. The likelihood is that it will be, but we try anyway.
There are some clear challenges that you would have, right? And I think you've raised some of them. So perhaps just maybe run through that, including, one of the points I found very interesting about the urgency of the moment, which is what you touched on, and you referred to that in the context of global pushback. Tell me more about that.
Yes, well, we are in a position where DEI, as the Americans call it, isn't the flavor of the day, and this would include women's rights. And so we have to push back the pushback, and this is one way of doing it, because it is an international body. It's a multilateral space, and I think we're more determined than ever to work together to make a difference. And that's the interesting part of what's happening. There's pushback and backlash, but what it's causing is even more coherence in the system, or cohesion, in the system.
And where's the pushback from?
Well, the pushback is from the right-wing men that run many of the countries in this world.
Okay. Let's wrap up with this. You certainly have a vision and a plan going forward. Maybe just touch on that.
Right. I think I'm going to lose battery on my phone, so I hope I can get this in. Please, I apologize. I've just been in a meeting all day.
Just go for it.
We want to make sure that we get the care economy on the agenda. We want to make sure that unpaid care work is properly counted in society, that women are properly counted in society, and that we understand that women's prosperity leads to the prosperity of societies. And there's research, a lot of research around that. And that is the fact that we want to put on the table.
Okay, get back to charging your phone, because we need you fully charged, not just literally with the phone, but in terms of action, for you to be as effective and impactful as I think you'd like to be. Prof. Nanya Bowler Muller, appreciate your time. Head of the delegation and chair of Women 20. Yes, so there we are. All this part of the build-up to G20 and lots happening, from a G20 to a B20 to everything else. I wonder where you sit in. Which 2020 group do you sit in on this process all throughout this year? This is the National Pulse. Let me just remind you as well, we will have a chance to take your calls, as always, around 5:45 onwards. We'll get more calls, more WhatsApp content, voice notes, if you're doing it 30 seconds, please, or text messages, but also many people are tweeting. And if you do that, just use the hashtag The National Pulse. And then the best way, tag SAFM Radio and do tag me, Ashraf Garda. Looking forward to connecting with you on air. Right, let's get the news headlines. Here's Kolofellow.
Thank you, Ashraf. In the headlines this hour, the murderess of Mangosuthu University of Technology lecturer Shanlal Dwarika has been sentenced to life imprisonment by the Durban High Court. The court found that Tobani Mhlongo and Kwanele Makaye kidnapped Dwarika in 2023 and took him to the bushes at Inanda, north of Durban, where he was killed. The Kabokweni Magistrates Court in Mpumalanga has postponed the bail hearing of the two men accused of killing 9 people at the Levisa Tavern in Pinar, east of Mbombela, to the 3rd of next month. And further afield, the U.S. House of Representatives has passed a bill put forward by President Donald Trump, allowing sweeping tax cuts as well as spending funding by increasing debt. I'll have details of this and other stories at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng on the M2, a crash reported at Denver, and the N1 northbound in Pretoria is a crash reported before Rigel Avenue. In KZN, the M7 eastbound has a crash before the N2 highway. The N3 westbound has a stationary vehicle before the M13 Paradise Valley interchange, and the N2 northbound a stationary vehicle near Sibaya Drive. In Cape Town, the R300 southbound queuing towards the N2 highway exit. The M5 northbound has a crash before the N1 Koeberg interchange, and the N1 outbound has a crash reported before Koeberg interchange. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
Right, what are we, not what are we talking about? What are we talking about?
Well, CAF have unveiled a brand new trophy for the CAF Champions League. This rebranding forms part of CAF's ongoing efforts to raise the global profile of its inter-club competitions. And here's CAF head of broadcaster liaison and operations Lux September explaining the inspiration behind the new design.
It's got a new base, a lot of detail, put a lot of touch of gold at the top. The previous trophy was probably this size, I think. So you can see that what we've done is not just make it bigger. We've given a big, nice, modern look. So when you're looking at other global competitions, I mean, we commission an international agency to give us working a lot with our amazing team internally at CAF to give us the look and feel of this, and this is the end product.
Well, there are 12 new players that have been called up in the Bafana squad that has been named by Hugo Bruce. It's a preliminary squad for the junior international friendlies. Mbegazile Mbogazi of Orlando Pirates, Club Brugge, Chandre Campbell and Mduduzi Shabalala of Kaizer Chiefs are amongst the youngsters who have made the cut. And Bruce is using these friendlies to test new players and did not select any Mamelodi Sundowns players as they have a busy schedule. Elsewhere, Real Madrid midfielder Luka Modric has announced that he will be leaving the club at the end of the season, and it's worth going through his Real Madrid CV, which is quite incredible. 4 La Liga titles, 2 Copa del Rey's, 6 Champions League titles, and 5 Club World Cup. And obviously there is more. However, he did write on social media saying that the time has come, the moment I never wanted to come, but that's football, and in life everything has a beginning and an end. On Saturday I will play my last match at the Santiago Bernabeu. Playing for Real Madrid changed my life as a football player and as a person. I am proud to have been part of one of the most successful eras of the best club in history, and we can officially say he's definitely going to be a Real Madrid legend. In rugby, the draw of the pool stage of the 2027 Men's Rugby World Cup in Australia will take place next December. The tournament will feature 24 teams rather than 20, as was the case since 1999 World Cup, divided into 6 pools of 4 teams. Perth will host the opening match and Sydney the final in the event from the 1st of October to the 13th of November 2027. In hockey, South Africa under-21 women's hockey team coach Cindy Brown has confirmed that their 2025 FIH Junior World Cup preparations will resume at the upcoming Senior Interprovincial Tournament in July. This is after SA's recent automatic qualification of the Youth World Cup after being crowned African champions in Namibia.
Unfortunately, with all that's going on at school and varsity level with interprovincials and intervarsities, we don't obviously have the time or finances to have another camp before then. So we'll play at Senior IPT at the end of July, and then we are hoping to have a final selection camp at the beginning of September. And after that, we'll hopefully pick the final team for Junior World Cup. It's going to be very tricky to do much else, but I mean, we would like to obviously have a camp or 2 if possible.
In tennis, Alexander Zverev will be 3rd seed for the French Open, but the 28-year-old prospects of winning his first Grand Slam title in Paris are not looking especially bright. The Hamburg native is making his 10th appearance at Roland Garros in what will be his 37th Grand Slam main draw and will again be one of the headline acts during the tournament. With that said, it is a wrap from my side. I will have more on other sports tomorrow.
I want to just tell you before you go, because I mean this is like, it's part of today's conversation. Let me not waste time because I need to find it if I can. No, maybe I can't. But give me 1 second as we get into extra time. No, maybe I can't. Okay. But I was going to talk about someone who's like just so sad about his team and we deserve something better. And as I've told you before, no club in the world has this thing about we deserve to be with the best. You have to earn that right.
And your team didn't earn it this time.
Definitely not. There's no question about it.
Our team.
So this sentimental nonsense, like, Ferguson saying, like, nonsense. If you want to win it, you must go and win it. It's a lesson for all of us. Yeah.
Well, we look ahead to the next season.
Your nights just got a turbo boost. Buckle up, because at 10 p.m. it's all thrill, mystery and pure entertainment. Mondays to Wednesdays, we are back on the track with Top Gear Season 14, where speed meets insanity and the world's wildest cars get pushed to their limits. On Thursdays, we uncover the truth in Imposter, Back from the Dead. Season 1 kicks off with chilling twists in a tale of deception, survival, and secrets long buried. Fridays, we take a deep dive into the unknown with Secrets of the Bermuda, exploring the myths, the disappearances, and the terrifying truth behind the world's most infamous triangle. 3 explosive shows, 1 unforgettable hour. It all starts at 10 p.m. only on S3. Don't miss it!
Hi, my name is Kutlwana Masote, your host of Weekend Sundowner Classics every Saturday and Sunday afternoon between the hours of 4 and 7 p.m. exclusively on SAFM. Now, this is where you get your best classical music jams on any radio platform. Join me every Saturday and Sunday afternoon between 4 and 7 p.m. Weekend Sundowner Classics.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
All right, Jimmy Moya hosts the business, the market update coming up from 6 to 7. Naturally, there's a lot of business reaction to the businessman turned politician Donald Trump had to say to the businessman turned politician Cyril Ramaphosa. Jimmy, what's on the show today?
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Good afternoon to the listeners. We're going to be reflecting on that meeting yesterday. We had a bit of an interesting show yesterday with that meeting coinciding with our show. So we're going to reflect on that, see what we make of it. I've got a conversation with the CEO at Outer Organization on doing tax abuse around that to get his thoughts around what we make of the Trump conversation. I mean, the rand has moved in quite a weird fashion against the US dollar as a result of that meeting and post that meeting. So we're going to look at that a little later on, but we're also going to be taking a look at Investec results. They gave us an update on their full year's performance. We're going to take a look at some interesting developments from their perspective. It looks like it's stronger numbers, but it also looks like we might be looking at a share buyback that was announced. So we're going to dig into that when we come back with them a little later on. And then we've also got a conversation with the team at Standard Bank around the importance of financial literacy when looking at building and securing generational wealth. This is something that we usually potentially might cover on a Wednesday in terms of consumer education, but yesterday was, of course, one of those exceptional Wednesdays. But we're going to chat to Standard Bank around that and get a sense of what's happening there. And then because it is Thursday, we've got our usual SME of the Week feature. We're going to be chatting to a small business based in Johannesburg, getting to know what it is that they do and how it is that they've been doing it. We've also got a conversation that we weren't able to air out yesterday, the conversation I had with the Commissioner at the South African Revenue Services. So we're going to get that played out today as well. So those that missed that conversation yesterday or didn't hear it yesterday, it's going to be aired today. So nothing to miss out from that perspective. In terms of the markets, we did miss out on a couple of things, like the Bitcoin price finally topping 2 million in terms of, or in rand terms. And we're going to take a look at that. Well, I suppose I can give you the update there. It is currently at exactly 2,455 rand and about 6 odd cents, depending on which platforms you're looking at and depending on what exchange rate you are dealing with. But yes, the Bitcoin price touched 2 million earlier today, is back at 2 million, is currently in US dollar terms trading at around 111,000 US dollars. The rand, 17 rand 98, 17.99-ish or so. So we were at about 17.85 at some point during yesterday's meeting. So weakening from that point to where we are now. The rand against the British pound, 24 rand 15. 1 euro will cost you 20 rand and 30 cents. 1 Australian dollar will only cost you 11 rand and 53 cents. The equity market seemingly having quite a weird day as well, a bit of a sell-off from that perspective. The Hang Seng, the biggest loser in Asian markets, down 1.3%. The Nikkei in Tokyo closed second, around 0.8% in the red. The CAC 40 in France down almost a full percent, 0.9% there. The FTSE in London, 0.8% in the red. The DAX in Germany, 0.7% in the red. The Nasdaq at the moment, the only international market in the green, up 0.5%. The S&P flat, and South African markets down 1/3%. 0.25% on the all share and 0.33% on the top 40. The biggest losers there were financial stocks down about 0.55%, with industrials down 0.5%. Resources still up about 0.3%, but that wasn't enough for our local bourse. If we look at the commodity prices, the platinum and palladium pricing still holding above $1,000 a fine ounce in each case. Platinum closer to 1,100, interestingly enough, $1,084 at the moment. Brent crude $64.36 a barrel. The gold price was above $3,300 a fine ounce a little earlier before you and I got on the phone. It's now almost 3,290 odd. So a little more positive than it was yesterday, but seemingly markets are finding their footing amidst all of the developments that we've seen of late. We'll dig into some local movements from our perspective in terms of what's been happening. I want to look at some results that came out today as well. The likes of Life Healthcare giving us an update from their perspective, but also a very important update from a trading perspective from Pick n Pay that I'm going to be looking at. I've got Fahima Adia from Momentum Investments coming onto the show a little later on to take a look at market movements. So that's what we're going to be discussing. But that's for 6 o'clock or just after 6 o'clock. For now, Ashraf, back to you.
Right, perfect. You enjoy your show. I'm sure it's bound to be a very, very impactful show anyway. The SFM Market Update with Jimmy Moyaha. What is also impactful is your thoughts. You're on the pulse, aren't you? Let's hear it after this.
SAFM has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Under the code, we are committed to giving news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that is not harmful, does not amount to hate speech, or contain violence or explicit sex. If you think we are not living up to that code, then you can inform the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Direct any complaints in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. PO Box 142365. Craig Hall 2024. Fax to 011-326-3198 or an email to bccsa@nabsa.co.za. For more information, please visit www.bccsa.co.za. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
In fact, we've just, as well, getting your calls, we've just got news now that the ANC stalwart Gertrude Schoppe has passed away, right? ANC stalwart spent lots of time, within the ANC, but confirmation now that she sadly has passed away. Right, I need to get to your call, so let's hear what you have to say. You could be anywhere in the country, and in fact, if you're in the USA, so much the better, just to get your South African-US perspective. Well, one of them is about crime.
Afternoon, Ashraf, my man. Bongani here from Qwaqwa, my friend. You know what I like about my president, Mr. Ramaphosa? He was calm and collected. And even though he showed the character of us South Africans, yes, we are living in crime, even in the rural areas, my brother. That's crime. So this thing of the farmers are being killed, it's not the reality. Yes, it is a crime, but it is not a reality. Sharp, my man. Bongani from Qwaqwa.
It is a crime. Well, the crime is the reality. The other may not be the reality of the targeted killings, as has been, confirmed from Donald Trump. Like they're so emphatic about that. But the crime is a problem. Whoever it is in the country, who can tell me that they feel chilled and safe? That would be just not true. Right, I asked you for one word to describe the meeting of yesterday as well.
My one word, Ashraf, would be gaslighting from both sides.
Gaslighting from both sides? I wonder if you can give me names so we know exactly who did the gaslighting as well. Eddie in Mpumalanga. Hi, Eddie.
Hello?
Yeah, Eddie, you're live on the air. Go for it.
Oh, thank you very much. Ashraf, there is something that point that we are missing as South Africans. We forget that the song that has been sung by Malema is a revolutionary song. And it's been debated in a court of law, and a court has made a finding on that particular song. However, I think it was totally disingenuous for whoever who took this song to America, because they're not accountable to America. We are a democratic state, and we have our own values. I believe what I've seen yesterday, as far as Mr. John Steenhuisen is concerned, he hates President Zuma with passion and hates Malema, Babu Julius Malema with passion, of which then what he said was a little bit disturbing, that the GNU has only one reason, to make sure that EFF and Umkhonto weSizwe does not go to the Union building. That was a very frivolous, what you call, comment to make on an international platform. Because remember, after the elections, the MK was fighting that they made some allegations that there were some votes that were rigged. And then now you go to the international world and you say that you colluded with the governing party and so on. Most definitely, I don't think that they briefed one another when they went there. But I just want to say finally, big ups to Johan Rupert. I think he has done the so-called damage control. I had a bitter and sour relationship with Johan Rupert before he went to America with the stories that we had. But after I heard him talking yesterday about South Africa, I think he nailed it.
Okay, well, there you are. If so, you and Rupert are now chummies. I mean, that's the way the world goes, right? So maybe more of the same. You see, the big challenge, and this is the thing I want to just bring up. Yes, I mean, we know what John Steenhuisen said about the EFF. We don't have to even repeat it. I mean, he's there. But whether he meant the GNU is there to knock them out, or whether he means his party, as part of the GNU, is there to knock them out, that's open to interpretation. I think the point is, the Malema chance, right? You don't have to go and deliver it to the USA. It's available online anywhere in the world right now. And the fact is, it's difficult. We know there's some symbolical reference of it all, but it's difficult to defend that in a public space like this when those are the type of chants. I mean, just think about it. So I think Ramaphosa showed restraint. There's no way he could have a long debate with Trump of all people about that, accepting he made the point that this, is not our policy. It's not government policy. It's the policy of one, what he called it, a small political party. Right, let's get to more thoughts. Hlabirwa in Sekhukhune. Go for it. Hello.
Oh, thank you, Asra, for taking my call.
Thank you.
Before that, I'd like just to comment on your assertion, especially when you quoted Phumzile earlier in the show.
Yeah.
How he, Malema as a politician and being talked all around the globe. And you tend to make this assertion that every time that the EFF and Malema has been mentioned, you said that does not translate into vote. It's not you are not in a voting station or in a voting period now. She was just saying that Malema as a politician, no one in South Africa or even before, that a politician of this stature being recognized, whether it's right or wrong, but it does not matter.
Okay.
That Malema is being talked about. But every time when it has been spoken in that manner, you always say that, but that does not translate into
okay,
vote.
I think you're wrong. I'll tell you where you're wrong.
No, I'm not wrong.
No, but listen to what
let me finish.
But I have to interject you on this one. I'm quoting, when I quoted Phumzile now, she said it doesn't translate into votes. Go and check the tweet out. I didn't say that. She said it.
Yes, I agree that she said.
Right,
but
so,
you are saying that on the comment that you made after that. You can just go and listen to yourself.
All right, I will listen.
You said that, but that does not translate into votes. So it's not the question of what Phumzile was not speaking about votes or not. Phumzile was just making a comment about the stature of Malema as a politician.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right.
But I don't want to move on from there.
All right, but we can't take. I need to get other people on board. I mean, please. I appreciate.
Yeah, but let me just.
No, but I can't. Hlabirwa, you made your point. You made your point.
No.
I'm not going to let you.
Me.
No, but I can't give you 5 minutes. You've made your point.
You're not giving me. I haven't even spoken about 2 minutes.
So you don't even have 2 minutes. It's not an interview. You must understand this.
Yeah, but you said 5 minutes and then 2 minutes.
I didn't say 5. I said I can't give you 5 minutes. But fine, I'll give you 30 seconds. Go for it. Make another point.
Yes, I'm just saying with this point. Steenhuisen is a political illiterate. He does not campaign for the DA. He's someone who's illiterate in politics. So he thinks that he's making the right call or the right comment when he was saying that. But because he's illiterate, he does not know. That's what I just wanted to make.
Okay. You've made your point. And again, as we always have on the show here, we have diversity of opinions. And I'll go back to the point about that was made by Phumzile, who I'm quoting her directly. She said, his standing doesn't translate into votes. That's what she said. Now, the reality is many people may also agree with that they've got tremendous clout, the EFF, but it doesn't always translate into big votes. Otherwise, they would have grown in the last election, and they didn't do so, and you know that, right? Okay, Khotso in Midrand, go for it.
Yeah, afternoon, Ashraf.
Afternoon.
Yeah, let me start with that. As much as we are condemning the EFF, you need to condemn the AfroForum. The racist AfroForum was exposed yesterday. And why I'm saying this, what Rupert was trying to highlight there was very important as an elder and as a businessman to say, as much as I'm an Afrikaner, there's no such as whereby farmers are being killed and everything. Crime is in both race. Yes. But what I want to reiterate this today is that the ANC or government in general, they're supposed to deal with AfroForum. Because the treason which they did by going to the US and so.
Oh, I'm not too sure what happened there, Khotso. Okay, I think we get the gist of what Khotso is saying. But Khotso, it's an interesting point. In fact, some may say that the EFF and how they continue pronouncing about certain things undermines the country and its nation building. I'm saying some may say that. Some may also say clearly that the position of AfriForum and solidarity undermines South Africa's nation building, and it should not be allowed. Okay, what's interesting, the chat I had with Dr. Chris Landsman just now, right? I think is so important. Where he said, I think it's about time that South Africa has to deal with those two NGOs that took the story of South Africa abroad, and of course he's referring to AfriForum. So maybe that's another conversation we should be having soon. What should we do regarding the issue of AfriForum and solidarity in terms of what they've convinced others abroad to think about South Africa. Right here, Atuka in Moinoi, go for it. Hello.
Yeah, Ashraf, in the interest of time, and I'm just going to pick up on what you said. It's not just the NGOs. I was listening to all the X spaces, including the recordings of the discussions yesterday. It is mainly white South Africans that have been spreading these lies about the country. Some of the things that were being said there yesterday about the country by people that are sitting in comfortable homes whilst telling the rest of the world that they are being oppressed, that they are being genocided. It is mainly, this fringe group of white South Africans. Not a single space did I hear a white South African push back. Not a single one. They were all clamoring on in this thing. Yeah, Trump is finally doing the right thing. Yeah, it's the same as when BLM was happening in America. Everybody said there was black genocide that side. It's our turn now. Nobody cared about the truth at all.
But when you say pushback from white South Africans, when are you referring to? Because we've certainly had people on this radio station. We've had people on social media. There's been massive pushback.
I'm not saying on this radio station. I'm saying the people that are on X that are engaging with Americans on Twitter Spaces, they are pushing this narrative more than anyone.
Okay.
Here on the SAFM, we agree, we disagree. But what I heard last night, uniformly, all the white South Africans that were on all the spaces on X were pushing this lie.
Okay, got it. I think we can't say all. Some of the whites, and you can say many, have been pushing.
No, on X, Ashraf.
No, but
on X,
but
on
all,
X,
you know what? You know what does all
X.
mean? No, but all means everybody. Every single person who's white in South Africa on X has been pushing one story. And I can tell you now, I can find them and I will show it to you and I will read it out to you. And they are white South Africans and they have a very different perspective from what AfriForum is. And they've used the X or the Twitter platform to say exactly what they've said. So I can agree with you to say some of them have supported the AfriForum line and they are pushing that agenda. And there are many others, not all, again, who are completely irritated by that, and they find it quite abhorrent, and they've actually stood in line with the national South African imperative around nation building, and they've done that. Atuka, thanks for that comment anyway, right? Check it out, all or not. By the way, so let's just comment now from the ANC about the passing of Gertrude Shope, right? The ANC reading a statement, announces with deep sadness the passing of Gertrude Chopper, also known as Ma Chopper, everybody calls her that, who departed peacefully at a home in Gauteng earlier today at the age of 99, by the way. A lifelong revolutionary, Ma Chopper, born on the 15th of August 1925, was a leader of profound discipline, courage, and humility. From early activism to the dawn of democracy, she served the struggle with unmatched commitment in the underground, in exile, and in the democratic Parliament. As a former president of the ANC's Women's League, head of the ANC Women's Section in exile, and a member of the ANC NEC, she played a pivotal role in shaping the political direction of our movement and the emancipation of women in South Africa and beyond. The ANC mourns the loss of one of its most trusted daughters, a towering figure of our struggle whose legacy will endure across generations. We extend our heartfelt condolences to her family, comrades, the ANC Women's League, the broader alliance, and the people of South Africa. And then saying a detailed statement and biography and funeral arrangements will be communicated in due course. That comes from the African National Congress. Right, let's see if there's more comments. We probably need another 15 minutes to run through all these comments, but I need to get to them very quickly with your voice notes. So here's one.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Ashraf, one word is circumvent. Let's thank the white supporters from South Africa who go with the president. They play a lot in saving the situation. You can detect that when Mr. President was trying to address Mr. Trump, he started to do those moves, those funny moves. But when Mr. Esterhazy and Mr. Rupert speak, he was attention. Thanks, Ashraf.
Thank you. But maybe that is a reflection of Donald Trump because he does choose sides all the time. We see that, and that plays out.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. This is Sebonga Mzimele at Newcastle. One way to describe such a yesterday meeting of Ramaphosa and Donald Trump was a sellout. Ramaphosa went there to discuss about Malema or to invite Elon Musk's technology. Nothing about really what's happening in South Africa. Nonsense, by the way.
Okay, wow. You're saying he was a sellout. Interesting one. Here's another.
Hi, Ashraf. It's Andrew here from Midrand. I enjoy your show always. My first time calling by voicemail. I really salute my president. I even call him my president because, amazing. He was so diplomatic, so calm, so mature, so in control. I think he had the whole thing together. And I really stand in admiration of him on this one, truly. Thank you, Ashraf. Enjoy further. God bless. Bye.
Thank you. Nice call, Andrew. Keep on doing it. Thanks for listening. Thanks for calling into.
Jamila, Ashraf, we do have the most astute president the world over. He was so calm in the Oval Office. You know, Trump will have to change his mind. He'll have to change his mind, come what may. What a smooth operator in Matamela, Ramaphosa. Good evening, lovely brother. How's it from Patricia?
Smooth operator. I heard that song. Remember Sade's Smooth Operator? Oh my goodness. Here we are. Here's the last one.
Good afternoon, Ashraf Gada and the hardworking team of producers behind you. My name is Mpepo Mpireni from Limpopo Mkumbani Village. Just one word, Ashraf. It was a tough fight, but TKO at long last. Thank you so much. I am Mpepo Mpireni, Limpopo Mkumbani Village.
Oh, lovely. TKO. In fact, here's the last one I'm going to play now.
One word, lie. Yeah, it was a lie. Trump wants to believe what he wants to believe because it fits into his agenda. He knows the truth. But the lies, the narrative of a white genocide, it fits into his agenda. They want to discredit our case at the ICJ for genocide. So they are calling what's happening in South Africa genocide. He wants to bully the world. He wants to make America great by undermining the sovereignty of many other countries. We are not the first. Let us wise up. Let us open our eyes. Kill the Boer is a struggle song. The struggle still continues.
Okay, interesting. Ramaphosa didn't refer to that, saying it's a struggle song yesterday. I think he didn't raise that at all, right? By the way, on the ICJ, interesting, when he was asked about that, Trump said, well, there's left to have a ruling on it, a firm ruling, so let's see what happens. It's very interesting. He didn't pronounce on that. That's the show. Wonderful as always to connect with you. Thanks for being a part of it, really, and love the engagement that we have. Sometimes we agree, often don't, but hey, we all have a clear sense of what's on the pulse, isn't it? Let's get the news now. Here's Solofelo at 6 o'clock.
Thanks, Ashraf. Top stories this hour. ANC stalwart Gertrude Shope dies and Dwarika's killer sentenced to life imprisonment. Good evening.